Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 I fear this will be where we fall. Then let's fall together. Dizzy, @y/n Patterson, 16, you re my best friend. You're important to me. I care about you. @Izuku Midoriya, 15, you re my everything. You're my priority. I care about you too. SS1S Swarnings. Cursing SSSSSSS. SSBYSSSS is/S, Y/N is S, SSS. S, S, SSS, MYHAY/NS, SS, Y/NIs. Speaking out loud. If only I could, I would absorb your pain and return it to you as love. Japan, 𝗵𝗍𝒂𝒄𝒌. Second person, wandered around in search of something, or more specifically, someone. The Blasian boy ran fast as his little legs would take him. But there was no particular reason for why he was running, but there was a person he was running to. Izuku Midoriya was around the young age of 8 with his girl best friend being a year older, 9. The two of you had been practically inseparable since kindergarten. He always looked up to you, you were much smarter than he was. And much stronger, you were on the volleyball team. A year ago, your grandmother had passed, and ever since you had been upset. You had a close relationship with her, a very close relationship that you lost when you saw them lower her casket. Ever since then, Izuku had been trying to cheer you up. But something about your smiles felt fake. Finally, after running for what felt like hours but was really 7 minutes, Izuku arrived at his destination. A big cherry blossom tree surrounded by appealing grass and flowers. When he arrived, he saw the blonde half-Hispanic boy, Katsuki Bakugo, walking away from said tree without noticing him. And that's when Izuku took it as his cue to finally approach you, holding something in his hands. His eyes gazed to see you leaning against the tree as you sat on the grass with your hair braided in beads. You had headphones in your ears and an art book on your lap. But you were staring at a purple butterfly on your finger. The Blasian boy silently walked up to you, not wanting to disrupt your peace. It didn't take long for you to notice him, turning your head towards him. The purple butterfly flew from your finger and flew around him as you smiled at him. Izuku. You called the boy's name as you watched the butterfly fly around him. A small laugh leaving your lips as it landed on his nose before flying on top of your head. You had taken notice of his hands behind his back. What are you hiding? I got you something. Close your eyes. Izuku smiled brightly, proud of himself for the gift he had in his hands. You looked at him confused but listened nonetheless. Izuku walked closer to you and got down on both of his knees so he was leveling the same height as you. Then he gently moved your braided beads and put a clip in your head. You can open your eyes now. When you did, you moved your hand to touch the clip he had put in your head. That's when your eyes trailed down to his hands, to see 2 more butterfly clips. I notice you like butterflies. So, I got you these butterfly clips for your hair. He smiled brightly. You look pretty. He was hoping the butterfly clips would make you happier since you had been down for a while. He was surprised when he saw your face practically light up before you hugged him. Thank you, Izuku. OSHUN. In current day, the pair of best friends found themselves eating lunch on the rooftop of 𝗵𝒍𝒂𝒄𝒌 Middle School. It was a day like an other, spending time with their favorite person. Each other. A lot has changed in the long decade of years they've been friends, but one thing that remained the same was the title. Friends. They were still friends. And until further notice, that title will continue to maintain. You and Izuku had very different reputations at school. You were in some kind of trouble every week, half of which wasn't your fault. Still, you were very intelligent, taking high school and college courses, and very athletic, doing at least 3 different sports each year. You weren't exactly a troublemaker, truth be told, You were quiet and minded your business majority of the time. But that didn't mean others would too. However, Izuku was never one to get in trouble. And if he did, it was never truly his fault. Like you, he was very intelligent, but unlike you, he was not as athletic. He could be, but he was never confident enough to join any team out of fear of his bullies. He was quiet involuntarily, he enjoyed talking but never felt comfortable to. On paper, or off first glance and impression, the two of you were polar opposites. You were intimidating, he was innocent. It was a wonder to others how two completely different people could be so close. But underneath the surface lied a layer that showed perfectly well. You both weren't so opposite, there was similarities. And part of you that were opposite countered each other and made your puzzle piece fit. The times you got in trouble were majority against bullying. You weren't afraid to stand up for yourself and Izuku, and you did so often. Any racist or sexist remark thrown your way, you countered with your words of your own, then actions. Bullying targeted towards Izuku, you talked less and fought more. It wasn't a deal you made, it was something you wanted to do. It was care. "I'll be leaving in a few," you said from where you sat beside the curly-haired boy, eating from a bento box. He turned to look at you while he ate, giving you his full attention as he always did. "I have a doctor's appointment." I remember. You had told him this already, the week before, yesterday, and this morning. You reminded him of your upcoming absence for his awareness. "You're getting new glasses, right? Something unexpected from someone with a reputation like yours. You don't have the best eyesight. In fact, you have terrible vision." "Yeah, I am, but I'm also getting contacts." You pushed the clear specks up the bridge of your nose. "I'll probably wear my glasses more, unless the occasion requires contacts. I'm getting them just in case. I like your glasses." His eyes softened for a moment as he looked at you. Natural hair slicked back in a high ponytail, eyes staring sharply through the glasses, brown skin glistening under the shine of the sun, lips full and glossed. "You are appealing. I hope you do continue wearing them after getting contacts." He quickly looked away when he realized he was staring, so he went back to eating. "I planned it. But for high school next year, I might to switch it up a little." You finished eating your packed lunch and grabbed the bag of cookies you added. "My mom said I should start thinking about high school and college. And she's right, I might only need to do 1 year of high school and jump straight to college. I already have a lot of credit, I just need to figure out where to go." "You'll do well wherever you go." He smiled with assurance before his gaze fell. "But I think your focus should be set more on what you want to do and what career you want to pursue." He paused his eating and stared down at his red shoes, mind drifting to the place his insecurities lied. What did he want to do? He knew but wasn't sure if he should pursue. Everyone said it was ridiculous. That he was ridiculous. It made him question his dream, question his capabilities, question himself. Was it ridiculous? Was it absurd? Would he never succeed? Shouldn't he at least try? The drift of his thought caught your attention, from the furrow of his eyebrows and stress of his expression to the silence that came with it. What's wrong? You had an idea of what occupied his thoughts, but you waited for him to tell you. And he did. 𝑰/N. There was a sadness and faint self-depreciation in his tone when he spoke your name. "Do you?" He brought his eyes to meet yours. "Do you think it's stupid of me to think I could be a hero? Should I give up? You haven't even tried, and you already want to give up. Maybe you shouldn't be a hero then." His eyes widened at your words, they ached to hear, but he didn't speak, he let you talk. How you expect people to believe in you, if you can't even believe in yourself? Believing in yourself is the first part, then hard work, and the rest follows. How do you expect to be a hero with trial and error? Without pain, without fear, without trying, without even thinking you can. I think it's stupid of you to want to be a hero with that mindset. Maybe you should give up if that ain't how you think. That doesn't sound like a hero to me. His eyes remained wide as they stared into your sharp ones. Your words hurt, like a bullet to the heart, but kiss to the head. It hurt because you were right. You didn't tell him what he wanted to hear, you told him what he needed to hear. It was harsh, but not everything needed to be sugar-coated. Something needed to be blunt and straightforward to understand. Being a hero is not about having a quirk. Some heroes have quirks that hardly contribute to them being a hero. It's their mindset and skill. I want to believe you can be hero, but I can't do that if you don't believe it yourself. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, all you really have is yourself. You need yourself. And right now your mind and heart aren't syncs. And you need both. You grabbed your things and stood up, looking up in the eyes. I want you to be my hero. Can you do that, Izuku? The beat of his heart sped up, palpating like it wanted to purse. It beat like the constant harsh bang of drum, vibrating warmth across his entire body. His wife and eyes glimmered with you as a reflection. A flush of skin visible. Adoration spreaded through him. It was gratifying. He opened his mouth to speak, to answer you, to tell you what his heart and mind agreed upon. But the bell rang, reminding him of where he was. He seemed to have gotten lost in your words and forgot. But you didn't. That was precisely why you spoke in the timely manner you did. After school, I want to hear your answer. But it won't be the answer that matters. Your stare burned holes into his heart, piercing it and staining his thoughts with the BLD of it. Then, you walked away before he could ask what you meant, leaving him to wonder for the rest of the school day with a bag of cookies. Can Izuku be your hero? Of course he will. OSHU and the appointment went well. You went to the eye doctor and got 2 new pairs of glasses, along with 2 pairs of eye contacts lenses. And for the rest of the day, you stayed home with your mother. She took an off day from work, so the both of you spent the next few short hours watching a show you both held equal love for. Around the time school was out, you left the house to walk Izuku home from school, like you did every day. While your mother left to pick up your younger sister, about 5 to 6 years younger. You thought about spending the rest of the day at Izuku's house, if his mother allowed it. And she normally always did. While sitting on the subway, you played music through your headphones, mumbling the lyrics out loud every now and then, and yelling them in your head constantly. Minutes later, you walked through the streets, and your eyes caught sight of a large crowd of people on the road, along with heavy traffic. This confused you. You walked through the crowd, not out of interest, well maybe a little out of interest, but mainly because it was the direction to the school. You tried to mind your business and keep moving, wondering why Izuku stopped texting. But the closer you got, the more you were able to see what all the commotion was about. You saw a head full of green curls race through the large crowd and run past the caution signs and tape put up by heroes. Quickly, you rushed up to the front of the crowd, where you were able to see the situation better. Your best friend, Izuku Midoriya, was trying to save Katsuki Bakugo, a distant friend of yours, from being consumed by a sludge villain. It was something straight out of a movie, if made the BLD on your body run cold. Fear rose in you, even more so when you saw Izuku practically sacrifice himself in exchange for Bakugo. His body now being consumed instead, his screams becoming muffled. This is not what you meant when you asked him if he could be a hero. Head turned, you stared in disbelief at the several heroes doing absolutely nothing but watching a villain take hold of your best friend. What the hell are you doing? They turned to you in shock of your outburst towards them. Do something. You're supposed to be heroes. Why are you just standing there? Help them. Sorry, ma'am, but we don't have the quirks to alleviate the situation. Those words, for a moment, shocked you into disbelief. You don't. This was what Izuku wanted to be. These were the praised protectors. Who would rather watch children die than try to help, even a little? This was a hero. What the hell is wrong with you? You grabbed the hero's costume and yanked him forward. You don't have the quirk. My best friend just saved that boy and he doesn't have a quirk. You're going to watch children die because of a Fing power. Are you even a hero? Because you look like a Fing disgrace to me. All of you. You don't have the right to call yourselves heroes ever again. And I will make sure you won't. And you meant that. Without a second thought, you pushed the man into the heroes and took off running, breaking the caution tapes and warning signs. You ran like hell was coming for you, ignoring the shouts of protest by the heroes. Their futile warning but refusal to run after you, to stop you, like the cowards they were. If the tiled heroes won't save him, you will. You have several times before, its situation, slightly different feeling, but similar mindset. Izuku may not be your hero, but you were always his. Not because of a title, but because your legs always moved, you always tried, even if you didn't win. You were the hero. It had been a while since you used your quirk, but now called for it. A purple glow formed in the palms of your hands, and next thing you knew, you had successfully pulled back Izuku and Bakugo with a force of strength you didn't know you had. Quirk, energy manipulation, an energy powerhouse that allows the user to not only manipulate and control all forms of energy, but generate and operate 15x more energy throughout their body than the average person. Everything was happened in a hazy daze. Your hands glowed more purple as you faced the disgusting sludge. It spoke, but you weren't quite sure what it said, probably something cocky. There was multiple shouts of your name, but it was hard to differentiate who screamed it. With a push of your legs, you ran at the sludge villain and the shouts grew louder. When your body merged with the villain, you used more of your power to take control of the villain, rather than the other way around. Your skin burned, you were very rusty with your quirk. But you continued to push through and fight, as you always did. The rest was a blur. It all happened so fast and slow, you barely comprehended what was going on after a while. Slowly, exhaustion and pain was the thing that consumed you. There was the voice of a man that filled your ears, both familiar and foreign. And after that, the rest was gone. Time had passed. It was a struggle you refused to go through, trying to learn how long. Steadily, your body regained consciousness, and even more time was needed for the feeling to come. Memories rushed through your brain of what happened time ago. It hurt your head to think about, so you stopped. The shift of your breathing and move of your body alerted Izuku of your conscience. It was then that you recognized he was carrying you on his back, your arms loose over his shoulders and your head on top of one side, while he held your thighs as he walked. You were confused but appreciative. That let you know the fight wasn't that long ago. Thank you. You whispered in his ear in your first language, English. A shiver crossed his skin at the sound of it, a feeling rushing through him. But he ignored the sensation and returned the sentiment, which you hummed at. How do you feel? He spoke in his second language, your native one, and you were grateful because your brain was struggling to comprehend Japanese at the moment. You used your quirk, and you never do. Your body must feel strained, right? I can carry you the rest of the way. Such a sweetheart he was. It made you smile and lean more into him. I do feel sore, very sore. Thanks, but you don't need to carry me the rest of the way. I know you're sore too. He also went through a lot. Don't worry about me, I'm fine. You did more, I want to care for you. His words and sentiment warmed your heart. Your eyes stared down and the smile you had softened. He was always so caring, maybe too much. Just as you opened your mouth to reply, reassuring him of your health, a familiar voice filled your ears. I am here. The sound sent a shock run through you and you raised your head to stare in disbelief. All Might. Izuku practically jumped at the sight of his longtime idol, gripping you tighter so you wouldn't fall. What are you doing here? How'd you get rid of all those reporters? You looked at Izuku confused, wonder why he asked that question of all questions, and wasn't freaking out as much. The #1 hero of all Japan simply laughed at the question. I stand for justice, not sound bites. Because I am more dash. He cut himself off with the sudden cough of BLD, and his body form shrunk down a few sizes and made him a skinny, sickly man. He was still very tall, just not as much. Izuku shouted at the sight from surprise, while you were just frozen in shock. You held Izuku tighter and leaned closer to his ear to whisper in English. Izuku, I don't think that's All Might, I think that's the stock figure I drew in first grade. No, Izuku cut himself off and tilted his head slightly, squinting his eyes skittle. Oh, I kind of see it. He does sort of look like a stick figure. A really tall one. All Might heard your shared whispering, not just because he was right there, but also because he was fluent in English. Young man, young woman, I came here to thank you. If you hadn't run into that fight, I would have been a worthless bystander watching from the crowd. So thanks. Oh no. It was my fault he was there to begin with. Izuku trailed off, his grip on you tightened slightly, and you were confused with what he meant by that and why they were so familiar with each other. It was her who did most of the saving. She fought the villain, while I got in the way of her hard work. And not to mention your time. A frown spread across your expression. He still wasn't quite ready to be a hero yet. That's not true. You got off his back, not noticing the look that flashed through his face, missing you in his hands. You did save someone, I only helped. Don't give yourself less credit. You smiled and cupped his cheek, meeting his eyes with your soft ones. You were a hero. But not the one I want to be. I'm not yours. He didn't say that out loud, but it was on his mind. Still, the feeling of your soft hand on his cheek, the soft look in your eyes, and the soft smile you showed him, was enough to overpower the thought. It clouded his senses, and all he could do was smile back. I'm not done. All Might's voice interrupted the moment had your attention turned to him. He looked curiously between the two of you, but continued. You told me you didn't have a power. So, when I saw this timid, quirkless boy try to save a life, it inspired me to act too. He paused and looked at you. And you. Seeing you give everything you had despite your inexperience, in order to save 2 lives was admirable. You did what most heroes couldn't do, be selfless. Oh. You uttered the small word with a look of surprise, and then a wave of embarrassment flushed through your body at the praise. Thanks, I guess. Izuku smiled at your reaction and gently rubbed your shoulder. There are stories about every hero. How they became great. All Might continued on talking and saying inspirational words. Most have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they had a chance to think. Almost on their own. The eyes of Izuku teared up as he stared at the man and listened to each word. It touched his heart. He had waited, wished years on end to heart this, till he told this from his idol. It meant more than anything knowing that only hours ago in school, when Bakugo told him to kill himself, he considered. For a second. A minute, maybe a few more. And he would never tell you, because he knew you wouldn't be able to handle it. And he was right. A purple butterfly flapped its wings and speared over your head. It caught your eyes and you watched it fly over your head before finally landing on your shoulder. The instant wave of nostalgia washed over you, memories of your grandmother. And today. That's what happened to you too. The more All Might spoke, the more impactful his words had on Izuku. Watched, eyes to the side, at Izuku's reaction before looking back at the man. Young man, young woman. You too can be a hero. When Izuku's legs seemed to give out on him, you quickly caught him. Lowering down to your knees and leaning his head against your chest, arms around him. You raised your head to look at the man, your face a void of emotion but your head filled with them. All you could think was your grandmother, who was a hero. Better than the ones you've seen today. Your eyes stared at the butterfly that flew to All Might's side and you furrowed your brows. Me. A hero. //. How we feeling about the new first chapter? OSHUN Japan, UA High. Second person, friends were at back street, one they were supposed to be walking through to get to their respective homes. But they were held up by the number 1 hero, who didn't look like the posters and pictures posted up very where. He spoke about inheriting a quirk, which had never been heard before, because it was seemingly impossible. Well, it was supposed to be, but not in this case. I don't understand. Izuku now stood again, still holding tightly to you. Not because he needed support, but simply because he wanted to. What do you mean, inherit? Inherit what? That, for some reason you were unsure of, had All Might burst into a fit of laughter. You should see your face right now. The two of you side-eyed each other before looking back at the man, who went serious again. Don't worry, I'm not going to force this on you. That would be weird and concerning. I'm glad you are aware. You said and pressed your lips in a thin line. This entire thing was weird. A large, sickly-looking man, who posed as a giant hero, was talking to middle schoolers in the back of streets. To anyone who might see this, it would look very bad on his end. Listen well, young man. This is your choice. All Might pointed his tiny finger at Izuku, but stopped to cover his mouth as he coughed up BLD. You gave a disgusted look. Do you want to accept my awesome power or not? That wording shows how old you are. You said with a straight face, and All Might had a look of hurt. But were you lying? The way he said it sounded like he was trying to fit in with the young and hip kids. There are a few things you should know about my abilities. All Might added, wiping the BLD from the corners of his mouth. You gave another disgusted look. Journalists always guess my power is super strength or some kinda invulnerability. When people ask in interviews, I always make a joke and dodge the question. That's because the world needs to think their symbol of peace is just a natural-born hero like any of them. But I'm not. That made you raise your brows curiously, watching the man stretch his arms out. There's nothing natural about my ability. I wasn't born with this power. It was a secret's torch passed on to me. Someone gave you this quirk? Izuku questioned, and when his idol nodded his head, his eyes widened and shock covered his expression. No way. Then, his expression paused. Wait, then why did you say I couldn't be a hero without a quirk, when you used to be quirkless? You said what? You blinked hard and stared at the man, waiting for an explanation. Well, that proved that you were right. They have met before this. When was this? Why am I just now hearing about this? The number one hero's face seemed to drain of color, and then he completely ignored what both of you said. Yes, way. And you're next. I can give you my abilities. Hold on. This is elective process. Everything Izuku was hearing was a lot. He wondered why they couldn't do somewhere so he could sit down, because he constantly felt like he should take a seat from the struggle of processing this. It's true there's a lot of debate of what your quirk actually is. But no one's ever figured it out. It's one of the world's greatest mysteries. From there, All Might explained his quirk and its purpose. To be quite frank, once he brought up it could be transferred, you guessed hold of what he had said. But for some reason, your mind kept drifting to thoughts of your grandmother, 𝗂𝗵𝗵𝗏. Wait, but being able to give a quirk like a gift changes everything. That would change dash, Izuku started to mutter to himself, and you listened to each word. You always did. You liked his rants and rambles. Stop nerding out. All Might shouted, the action startling Izuku and fanfizing you. What's with the old hippie talk? You'll have to adjust your reality and accept this as your truth. I can transfer my quirk to someone else. And that's just one facet of my secret abilities. The palm of his hand, a glow of different colors emitting from it. The true name of my power is simply one for all. What? Izuku repeated the name of the man's quirk in a slow pace. He stared at the power surging from the hero's form in shock and disbelief. This was real. Somehow, this was reality. All Might confirmed. One person improved the power, then hands it on to the next person. It continues to grow as it passed along. It is with this cultivated power that allows me to save those who are in need of a hero. The truth behind my strength. But why would you choose to give me a gift like that? Izuku questioned, confused as he stared at the man. What if I can't live up to it? You were about to scold him for talking down on himself again, until All Might spoke. I was on a long hunt for a worthy successor dash. While the hero went on his long rant, you turned to your thoughts. You a hero? Yes, your grandmother was a hero, a underground hero that was great and well respected. One few people truly knew because she kept her identity a secret. But the incident today, knowing how heroes have become, could you join the toxic environment? It wasn't about whether you could, you trusted that you could. But did you want to? Why would you want to be a hero? What would be your motivation? Would you give it your all? Would it make you happy? You refused to be a hero simply because, if you were to join the field, you needed to be sure. You didn't want to waste your life away. You had too many career fields you could put your skills to use and enjoy it. Heroism might not be one of them. Or would it? Okay, yes, I'll do it. The sound of Izuku's sweet voice and response had gently tugged you from your thoughts. You looked over to him, and your eyes softened at the determination that you loved to see cover his appealing face and gorgeous eyes. A will to strive for his goal. And you. All Might turning his attention to you, and you turned yours to him. Conflict in your eyes that you were trying to resolve mentally. I believe you can be a hero as well. Silence surrounded you as the number one hero waited for your response. But you couldn't speak. You were conflicted. You didn't know what to say or how to respond. Did you want to be a hero? Would it make you happy? Would you give you all? When you grew old, would you say you lived without regrets? Would you proud of yourself? Could you be as great as your grandmother? Suddenly, you felt the soft and gently hand that you were oh so familiar with grab your own. You turned to see Izuku staring at you with reassuring eyes and kind smile. Those eyes. Those appealing eyes that you love to gaze on. Those eyes that stare lovingly into yours. That has never stared differently, that has never hurt you. Those eyes. Those appealing green eyes. I will be a hero. OSHUN in what seemed to be a breeze, the flip of a coin in the air, the whistle of a tone, the motion of the sun rising and falling, 10 months have passed by. Nearly every day, as early as 6 a.m., you and Izuku trained with all might on the beach. You were not a morning person, and even though you hate the moment your alarm went off, you did enjoy getting up early. It made you more productive, more calm and relaxed, and you enjoyed watching the sun rise. Working out was not that hard for you, not nearly as much as it was for Izuku in the beginning. You had spent your entire life, from the late age of 4 years old, doing martial arts. And you were very athletic. You only stopped doing martial arts a year ago. You did martial arts with your brother, who was 6 years older, and helped train your younger sister. Izuku, on the other hand, was not that in shape and had some difficulty, but he didn't give up and even excelled more than a normal person would in 10 months. He had always wanted to work out and get in shape, but never had the motivation and courage to until then. And he exceeded way past the many limits set in stone for him. His body was much different. He very quickly became a gym rat. In current time, it was the day of UA entrance exams. UA High School is one of the top 2 schools for heroes in Japan. In the past years, they abolished the rule that children needed Japanese BLD to join the school. The principal, Nizu, when joined, got rid of the rule not only because it was unfair, but also the foreigner population was rapidly growing in Japan more each year. That early morning, Izuku inherited All Might's quirk. You were unaware of how because you were not there since you wanted to get ready and prepare for the exams. But you were curious, more so since Izuku refused to tell you, saying it was embarrassing. That was concerning. These old people are jarring and I'm so serious. You spoke while the 2 of you walked up to the high school. You see, the nice old folks, the gentile geriatrics, they cool. But once you come across them 𝗵𝗃 heads, man. You clicked your tongue and rolled your eyes. Tell me why for the last few months, I've been delivering groceries on the side with my mom's car. It was a calm little side hustle, just to make money and learn how to drive. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone, you know. One of the customers I was delivering for so happened to be this very old lady. As I'm handing off the groceries to her, she starts complaining about a missing item. And items that she never ordered in the first place. The irritated look on your face had him smile. So, I apologized for the inconvenience, but I tell her there's nothing I can do because she never ordered said idiom. I know this because I check thoroughly for her behalf. This 𝗵𝗃 head looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're just as useless as you look. I beg your civil pardon." The look on your face made him laugh. Now listen, I chose to be nice and ignore her, but that's only because when I fight fire with fire, I'm bringing out the flames of hell. And on top of that, this nursing home recipient had the texture of an old leather belt. She didn't need any more problems. Izuku wanted to lie again, but he felt bad. She was 2 coughs, dare I say 1 cough away from a life alert prescription. I had to let her go. I couldn't do it. The elderly can be a little forgetful sometimes. Izuku tried to defend to compensate for the lugging he had been doing. That was very rude of her, though. But maybe she wanted an idiom and thought she ordered it. No, what she wanted was these problems. And if she wasn't a BLD pressure rise away from being 6 feet under, I would have gave them to her. That made Izuku burst out laughing, and you couldn't help but laugh with him. It was wrong, but it was hilarious. While walking up the pathway of the prestigious school, the both of you heard the aggressive voice of a certain blonde with sharp red eyes. "Stupid Deku," he uttered, and the 2 of you turned to see the one responsible, Katsuki Bakugo. Catch him. Izuku muttered the name in surprise. The nickname was one he had been calling him since childhood, similar to how Bakugo had been calling him Deku. The name Deku meaning useless person, which is why you've never, not even once, called him that. "Get out of my way now before I set you on fire." Bakugo said overly aggressively at the green-eyed boy. He looked at you, eyes acknowledging your presence. Nice to see you're still in, but I hoped being saved by someone would make you more gracious. But no, you're still an arrogant beach. I must have forgotten who you were. Your eyes sharpened and narrowed at the blonde. The two of you were friends, but it was thin line. You would not let him off easy for how he treats Izuku, you never will. And he knows that. I don't care about being gracious. Maybe you should. He didn't respond, only stared sharply at you before walking away. The two of you had a complicated friendship, but it was friendship nonetheless. Izuku looked between the two of you but didn't say anything. He always wondered what was the undertone of your friendship. What was the pillar, how it began, what was 𝗵𝗄𝗄. The two of you continued walking towards the overly large doors. While walking, Izuku somehow managed to trip over his own feet and fell face first. Before you could grab him, a hand touched his body and next thing you knew, he was floating. Are you okay? Asked by a girl with shoulder-length, brunette hair as she removed her hand from his shoulder. Izuku saw the girl looking at him worriedly, and when he realized the floating situation, he started to freak out. The girl placed the prints of her fingers at each other, releasing him, and then gave a closed-eyed smile. I stopped you with my quirk. I'm sorry I didn't ask first. But I figured you wouldn't mind me catching you. She stood before both with a gentle presence. Isn't this all, like, really nerve-wracking? He stuttered and cleared his throat, swallowing the stutters away. A light blush appeared on his cheeks from embarrassment, his nerves, and sudden surprise. He means he agrees. You spoke up for him, eyeing the girl curiously. She was cute, you could admit. And clearly kind, too. You noticed a bubbly persona to her. He is a little nervous. I understand, I feel that way too. The brunette smiled at the two of you, and you have a small one back. Well, I guess I'll see you both inside. Bye. The small and awkward conversation ended with her waving and walking away. The freckled boy watched her walk away and was filled with embarrassment at the awkward exchange. I just talked to a girl. He covered his mouth, feeling disappointment in himself. And I acted like alien speaking to a human for the first time. So much for a first impression. Sorry, am I not feminine enough to be considered a girl to you? You narrowed your eyes at him, watching his face contort with how flustered he grew. And yeah, you acted like a total creep. If you're trying to get a girlfriend, I suggest you learn how to speak coherent words to a girl before attempting to date one. I'm not trying to get a girlfriend, Izuku said with a sigh, because truthfully, that was partially a ally. I didn't mean it like that. I still get nervous around you and I've known you for 11 years. As soon as he said, his eyes widened and he shut his mouth. He swallowed and refused to meet. Your eyes. Don't feel bad or anything. You're definitely feminine. You are an appealing woman to me, He sighed and face-palmed. You're right, I need to learn how to speak coherently. I was just teasing, calm down Freckles. You smiled, watching him short-circuit was cute. And thank you. You're masculine to me, and you're very handsome. You rubbed your hand against his shoulder with a grin before continuing to walk. And Izuku just stood there shocked at your words before rushing to get by your side. He gently and hesitantly grabbed your hand to hold, and smiled when you squeezed it back. OSHU and the entrance exam had two portions, a written and action portion. UA was not just your ordinary high school, it was very prestigious and took education very seriously. You had to be on a college level to attend, because you would be taking college since most likely, especially if you're in the hero program, you will not be going to college. The written exams were first, and since you were already taking college courses, it was not as hard, but still scratched your brain. After the written exams, everyone was given an hour lunch break, and then given another 30 minutes to get ready for the physical exam. Calm down, you look like you're about to blow fuse or something. You looked at your best friend, who was stretching his arms and taking a deep breaths. You'll do great. And if you don't, I know a hacker that won't mind putting your name on a schedule. That's kind. Concerning, but kind. Izuku smiled and you grinned. But no, I want to do this on my own. I want to try my hardest, and if I fail, maybe I really shouldn't be a hero. Stop that. You grabbed Izuku's face and turned it to you, causing his eyes to widen in shock. Stop talking down on yourself. I'm tired of hearing you get in your head. You will be perfect hero. You've made it this far, so drive all the way. I want you be my hero. The inspiring words and sudden use of English caused the beat of his heart to palpitate. It happened often when he was with you. By now, he wondered how he had yet to die of a heart attack. Maybe one of these days he will, but until then, the feeling warms his heart in an unspeakable way. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the large gates opened, indicating the test was about to begin. You turned towards the entrance while he stared mindlessly at you. God, you are so appealing. His thoughts were interrupted by a shouting voice, and he turned to see everyone running, so he did so. One thing that could not now noticed was the fact that a city was made simply to exposed of. It made you wonder not only how big their budget is, but how much property do they own. This wasn't just a small make-believe city, it was a real one that was currently infested with children and giant robots. How were they paying for all of this? You used your power as best as you could to defeat the 𝗲𝗏𝒂𝒄𝒌, but you relied mostly on your raw and physical strength. You could shut them down with your quirk, but because of how inexperienced you were with said quirk, you struggled to do so each time. So, you only weakened their resolve and relied on your legs and arms to break them. It seemed to work. This was a reminder that you needed to work on your quirk more, and you planned to do so. You needed to gain more control, if you are going to be a hero. Your raw strength, for now, will be what carries you, but you won't let your own power be your weakness. Honestly, you wished you could have worse some headphones. This would go a lot smoother if you didn't hear the constant sound of screaming and destruction. You started to daydream because of how annoying the sounds were, living in your own little head with scenarios playing. At some point, you kind of, not purposely, forgot about your best friend. You were in your own little world, daydreaming about a life you wished to live while fighting robots. You know, the usual. And got so caught up in your head that you completely lost sight of him. What finally startled you was when the ground started to shake. At first, you ignored it and kept fighting, but that was until you saw everyone running and screaming frantically. Next thing you knew, you saw a giant, at least 70 feet tall robot marching along. Well, I'm fed. The giant robot punched the crowns, the action creating a strong gust of wind. This caused a large number of people, literally almost everyone in the area, to run away in fear. Even more so when some got caught and injured. You wondered how they were going to get past the angry partisans and multiple lawsuits after this. Next thing you knew, a strong gust of wind forced you back into a brick wall, destroying it. You groaned and rubbed your back, opening your eyes in shock to see the robot seem to come in your weight. You coughed hard and tried to get up, and you did, but you were not as strong as before. You are definitely suing if you get trampled. Unfortunately, and I guess kind of fortunately, you won't get to file that lawsuit because Izuku was suddenly in the air. Adrenaline rushed through his body when he saw you get hurt, and he powered up his quirk and launched himself, somehow. He readied his and let it collide with the head of the giant robot, destroying it completely. Holy, you whispered to yourself, staring in utter shock at the action. You couldn't help but feel proud, taking in deep breaths as you smiled. He actually did it. That proud feeling you felt was almost immediately countered with worry. You see, what Izuku did was a spur-in-the-moment kind of thing. He didn't think further past the action. So, after destroying the reboot with a super punch, he fell. And he screamed. While he fell. With no thought of how to land. Which means he might have died. And if did, this entire school would be shut down. Because what the F? Looking around frantically, you searched for help and found it. Save him. You shouted at the familiar brunette you met earlier. Remembering her quirk was the ability to float by touch. A big coincidence, but who cares? Float him to safety. It was more of a demand rather than an ask. In that moment, you felt useless. If you had control of your quirk, you could have saved him. But you didn't, because you couldn't. And that feeling would eat away at you for longer than you cared to admit. The girl with brunette hair nodded her head with a look of determination on her face and in her eye. She pressed all of her fingers on a rock she was on top of, and floated herself over so she could get closer to where he would land. The estimation needed to be perfect. And it was, but not in the way you would have liked to see. The girl slapped him in the face when he was near, successfully floating him. You furrowed your brows and pressed your lips together before ultimately deciding to just ignore. Relief flooded your senses and you rushed to him, grabbing a hold of him and pulling him close. The girl pressed her fingers together tiredly, letting his weight fall on you. "Thank you," you whispered to the girl, who gave a sheepish smile. "It's okay, dear." The sound of an elder woman caught your ears. When you turned your head, you looked to see an old lady you did not recognize but appeared to be a nurse. You were caught off guard when she suddenly stretched her lips wider than you believed was humanly possible and kissed Izuku's cheek, then yours. "Recover, girl," she said. Her name was. She sure had her work cut out for her today. And for the rest of the year. OSHUN time. Passed, a few weeks to be a little more specific, since the entrance exam at UA High School. School went out and moved to the few weeks between school year change, because school in Japan is much different than in America. In Japan, the school year ends in March and begins in April, and students have summer in the middle of the school year. The letters of school were sent out. You were happy, but unsurprised to find out you got accepted to all the schools you applied for, including UA. For the prestigious high school, you ended up ranking yourself in 5th place, and you were told you would be in class 1A. And that is how you found yourself staring at the overly large doors of the class on the first day of your new school. It came to a shock that Izuku was not getting in, so you spoke to one of the staff, almost PL swing for him to get in. You didn't say a backstory, only pointing out how he saved you and defeated the robot nobody wise could. It was embarrassing, but it worked. If it didn't, you would have just hacked him in. You were serious about that. "Yeah, this is the classroom." You pulled down the skirt you were wearing, not liking how the back wouldn't stay down. You wished they allowed girls to wear breathes. You thought about buying and wearing them anyway, like you did in middle school. The boy you claimed as your best friend looked at you for reassurance and found it in your eyes. He grasped your hand, squeezed it, and then used it his other to reach for door handle. The moment he opened the door and took a step in, he was almost immediately sought out. "Hey, I recognize that hair." The girl with shoulder-length brunette hair, from the entrance exam, suddenly appeared before the two of you with a bright smile. "Falling boy." "That's not my name." The embarrassed look on his face had you smile at him. As the girl began introducing herself as Ochako Uraraka, you attempted to let go of Izuku's hand. But his grip tightened. It was only when you gave him a confused look did he finally let go, reluctantly. Once you have slipped from his, you turned to look at the class filled with many different students. A tall boy with vibrant blue hair and intellectual glasses walked over to the bubbly girl and began speaking. The conversation seemed to flow well without you, so you walked away. You missed the longing look Izuku gave you when you did, wishing he hadn't let your hand go. "Morning, terrors." The sound of Bakugo's voice had you rolled your eyes, and you walked straight past him, finding a seat by the window behind him. "Morning, bleach blonde." You replied with a fake happy tone and sat down. You breathed in a deep breath and exhaled, then grabbed your headphones. You decided to listen to music while you wait for class to start. While listening to music, you started reading a book you had just bought the week before. Your bookmark fell to the ground, and just as you reached to grab it, a tan hand got it for you. "This belongs to you, right, Hermosa Chica?" You looked up to see a boy with short, raven hair and pretty smile flashed at you. He spoke that last bit in Spanish. You recognize he called you appealing girl. "Sí, lo es. Gracias." You responded back in Spanish and grabbed your bookmark, saying, "Yes, it is, thank you." You learned Spanish because Bakugo was half Hispanic, and he was your friend. That, and you dated someone who was Hispanic. The guy had an expression that showed he was surprised by you replying in Spanish. "¿Tú hablas español?" He asked if you spoke Spanish, and when you nodded your head, he smiled. "El nombre es 𝗵𝗃𝗄. He introduced himself in his native language and held his hands out for you to shake. 𝑰/N Patterson. You shook his hand with a small smile of your own. He wanted to conversate with you more, but his friends called him over. So, he simply repeated your name and kissed the back of your hand with a wink, then left. Your brows widened, but you went back to reading, unaware of the sharp green eyes on you. This was going to be a long year. //. So you like 𝗧𝗵𝗂𝗏 Japan, UA High. Second person, assigned to the new first-year hero class A, was certainly an odd one. Not because of his long black hair, tired eyes, and weirdly well-maintained facial hair that also looked a mess. No, the teacher was an odd one because he decided to start the very first day of school with a quirk assessment exam. And to make things even more silly, if someone landed themselves in last place, they were being expelled. On the first day. He's such an odd one. The teacher in question was 𝗧𝗵𝗲, Mr. or Sensei Aizawa for students, and Eraserhead to colleagues and those else who knew of him but not personally. It was he who started the first day off scaring his students into thinking he would expel one of them, which he fully intended on doing, but didn't at the last moment. You were not worried though, since you were in third place for the exam. Izuku, however, was at last place. Add information, you found out that you were an addition to the class despite your high ranking during the entrance exam. That was because you applied to several other schools and took your time deciding which one to go to. So, when you finally chose UA, very last minute, class schedules were already made. They only let you in the class because of your skills and potential, and Aizawa specifically requested you. The man you remembered to be was your older brother's mentor years ago. He helped your older brother, who was years ahead of his age group and already in college by age 14, train to be a part of the FBI task force that specializes in working with pro heroes. You saw him a lot when he agreed to train your brother, a favor for your mother, and he works with your brother now. Aizawa had watched you carefully during the entrance exam, like he did every other participant that exceeded his expectations. He noticed your combat skills, strategy, and raw strength. Despite it being very obvious you were inexperienced with your quirk, your potential caught his attention. Perhaps it was the Patterson gene, but you have undeniable talent. During the quirk assessment test, your skill caught the interest of your entire class. 1 minute before class started, you were quiet and though you still are. The next minute, you were at the top of each test, even though that had nothing to do with your quirk. One thing that couldn't go without notice was that you barely used your quirk. It was safe to say all of your classmates had their eyes on you. But there was one kid, 𝗵𝗲 specifically, who seemed to be taking the most interest in your skills. The youngest child of the number 2 hero, 𝗵𝗲𝒄𝒃. The boy, Shoto Todoroki, watched you carefully as you passed each test, only breaking a sweat because of the heat, not the work. If there was one thing he knew, it was that you had extensive training prior to attending the school. But oddly enough, at least to him, he couldn't figure anything else about you. You had yet to speak, didn't react, and seemed to not put in as much effort as everyone else did, passing each test with ease. It was hard to figure you out, he couldn't. You were a mystery. There was another student, a girl this time, who couldn't help but pay close attention to you. Ochako Uraraka. Her eyes stared widen each time you did another test, and passed fluently. It was a losing battle to not feel admiration while watching you. The rest of the day went by quick, and during your free time, you either listened to music or talked to Izuku. Your goal wasn't to make friends on the first day, it was to get through the first day. And thankfully, you managed to do that successfully. Hours had passed, and the first day of school was done. Then sun was starting to set, and you walked with your best friend. Alongside the two of you, the blue-haired boy with the glasses, who you learned was named 𝗍𝗔𝗍, walked too. It was quite obvious, despite his attempt to include you, that he was there for Izuku. You were bothered by it, you were a fervent introvert and didn't care to socialize all that much. You were comfortable being alone, you were comfortable with silence, you were comfortable being with yourself. That's why Izuku felt special, he was a want for you. You wanted him in your space. Hey. You three. You, Izuku and Iida paused and turned around to see the familiar girl with brunette shoulder-length hair, running over with a big smile and wave. Going to the station. Wait for me. You're the Infinity Girl. Iida had been referring her as such since the quirk assessment test. The goal was to use your quirk to throw a baseball with a tracking meter, as far as each student could. Since her ability was floating, she made the float till it charged infinity. I'm Ochako Uraraka. The girl introduced herself to the tall boy with a bright closed-eyed smile. You're 𝗍𝗔𝗍, 𝑰/and Patterson, and Deku Midoriya. Deku. It was said by Izuku, in a shocked, embarrassed, and confused tone. You glanced at each other with a questioning look before looking back at the girl. 𝗎𝗓𝒏𝒂𝒄 looked puzzled by your reactions and questioned to the name. But during the fitness test, the boy named 𝗵𝗃𝗂𝒂 said Deku, 𝗬𝗵𝒃𝒂𝒄𝒂. That's what was shouted by the aggressive blonde. No. You sighed and looked ahead of you. You were hoping that name wouldn't follow him throughout the years, but it looked like it would. His name is Izuku Midoriya. Deku is what Kaken calls me to make fun of me. Izuku added on, looking away and scratching his fingers through the curls at the back of his head out of embarrassment. Seeing the action made you grab his hand, stopping him from tangling his very loose curls. Ida looked between the two of you, his very vivid expression showing the shock and surprise he felt hearing that. An insult. Oh, is that right? I'm sorry. 𝗎𝗓𝒏𝒂𝒄 very quickly apologized, giving a nervous smile as she rubbed the back of her head. But you know, death sounds like a word for, you can do it, to me. So, I kinda like it. Oh. Izuku mumbled in surprise, he didn't expect that reaction. His eye briefly glanced at you, the words you told him last year came to mind. A smile appeared on his lips when he looked back at the girl. Then you can call me that, I guess. She can. The disbelief you felt course through was not only evident in your face, but also from the way you suched languages. You looked at him shocked, surprised, and confused. You're accepting it way too quickly. Wasn't it just an insult? Ida showed he was also shocked by the sudden twist, but not all for the same reasons as you. The girl, 𝗎𝗓𝒏𝒂𝒄, smiled brightly at your best friend and thanked him. You stare at the interaction, beating the inside of your cheek, before looking away. You put on your headphones and continued the rest of the walk silent, ignoring their conversations. And the next school day, you continued through the day as you normally did, quietly in your own little world. You did your school work, only spoke a short number of times, and listened to your music. You anticipated going home because there was an unfinished painting waiting for your less than godly skills. You weren't the best painter, in fact you couldn't even draw, but you had been painting for years, so you had gotten very good at it. There was a break during class, and you used that time to listen to music and stare out the window, watching nothing in particular. That was until you heard a dramatic and familiar voice. I am. Coming through the door like a normal person. Clearly not. The number one hero, All Might, entered the classroom and was immediately met with most students showing just how big of fans they were with their excitement. You, however, just sat there and watched. All excitement you might have felt if this was your first time seeing him was gone due to how much you've seen him in the recent year. It's All Might. Wow, he really is our teacher. I teach hero basic training. It is a subject where you train in different ways to learn the basics of being hero. All Might spoke in a tone that showed he was sure and confident in himself, enthusiastic about being a teacher, and the students listened eagerly and carefully to every word. You'll take the most units on this subject. Let's get right into it. This is what we'll do today. The hero and teacher showed the students a card that they were unfamiliar with. Combat training. And to go with that are these. Just as he says that, number-labeled boxes came out of the walls. Costumes made based on your quirk registrations and requests you sent in before school started. After you change, gather in ground beta. Yes, sir. The students went to the locker rooms, grabbed their respective boxes, and changed into their hero costumes. Then, they gathered together and made their dramatic entrance ground beta, where they would be doing their first day of hero training. They say the clothes make the man, young men and ladies. All Might said, watching the first-year class of students approach him. Be fully aware. From now on you are heroes. That's great, everyone. You all look cool. Now, shall we begin, you zygotes? You look like a purple highlighter. The sound of 𝗵𝗃𝒂𝒄's voice made you roll your eyes heavy and fight the urge to respond violently. You turned and gave him a blank stare. You ignore yourself when you talk. All dialogue, no boxes checked. You says it with a blank tone, no laughter. You wanted him to hear the insult and think about it. So, it must be a sale today. Because you gave me your 2 cents for the price of dumb. Get out my face. The blonde stared at you and threw insults, but you ignored him and walked away, shifting your focus to your best friend, who you were in search of. And the sound of a girl complimenting him while saying that horrid name he was called when bullied led you to him. And of course, it was 𝗬𝗏𝗂 calling him said name. Cool costume, deh. When you found the two, your eyes scanned over their costumes, specifically your best friend's. You remembered him showing and telling you about the costume his mother made for him and wanted him to wear as an apology for not believing in him as much as she should. But you didn't think he would have actually wore it, since it was basically a green bunny cosplay. You should have known though he was a mama's boy at heart. Just as you scanned his hero suit, Izuku did the same thing. And the moment his eye laid on you, his heart nearly leaked out of his chest and into your hands. His heartbeat sped up in his chest, eyes lowering more and more before raising back to meet your eyes. For a long moment he was completely speechless. 𝗵𝗃, you look so amazing. 𝗬𝗏𝗂 broke his concentration by complimenting and gushing over your hero costume. It looks so amazing on you. Purple is definitely your color. It's tighter than I thought. I think they got my hip size wrong. You had already deigned your costume down to measurements. It was overly tight around your thighs and hips, which you did not like. But seeing almost all the other girls' costume, they either didn't realize or it was intentional. You were hoping it was the former. But thank you. You look great in yours. Pink suits you. Thank you so much. When you looked at your best friend, he seemed to be occupied staring at you. She might have broke his concentration, but he did not lose his focus. His eyes had stayed solely on you since you walked up, going from your hair, that was done in a low bun, to your face, to your waist, to your hips, to your thoughts, and then finally taking in the design. This was on repeat in his head, in that specific order. A bunny. The sound of your voice brought his eyes back. Your face, your skin practically shining under the sun. As it always did. A toxic waste bunny. That sweet hum of a laugh filled his ears like a symphony. So short but so perfect. At least you got the cute face for it. You took a step, 2, then 3 to him, and he felt your fingers pinch his cheek with that gorgeous feature he loves. Your smile. Izuku swallowed, trying to calm his heart and nerves before speaking. He trailed off and cleared his throat, mentally slapping himself and shouting, "Get it together. Your hero costume looks great. It supports you really well. You haven't really seen the support." You did a quiet laugh at his reaction to you. He hasn't seen you in action, so how would he know if the hero costume supports you well? Truth is he didn't. Which is precisely why that's not what he meant by support. You designed it, right? I'm taking an educated guess, but I'm pretty sure it does. He smiled at you. Great save. But seriously, you look perfect. I love the color scheme, it suits well. Very stealthy. Thank you. 𝗬𝗏𝗂 could not notice the difference in how you two interacted with others versus we each other. You were very quiet, hardly squeaking a word, while Izuku was usually timid, shy, and a nervous wreck. But together, you were the opposite, talking to each other a lot, smiling a lot, laughing a lot. You talked more and he didn't stutter over his words, especially when complimenting you. You and Izuku, when together, were very comfortable. The sound of All Might's loud, firm and very recognizable voice caught the attention of all the young first-year students. Now it's time for combat training. He let them converse it a bit, but now it was time to work. Teacher. Lita's voice caught you by surprise, and that was because you hadn't expected where it would come from. His hero costume resembled something of a robot, or Silver Iron Man. This is a battle center from the entrance exam, so will we be conducting urban battles again? All Might held up 2 of his fingers. Was he posing? No, we're going to move ahead 2 steps. Most of the time, fighting villains take place outside, but if you look at the total numbers, atrocious villains appear indoors at a higher rate. Imprisonment, house arrest, backroom deals. In this society filled with heroes, truly intelligent villains hide in the shadows. It made sense to you. Villains who are cocky and overly confident usually had nothing to hide because they wanted to show off, to be known. Narcissism. While more intelligent and strategic villains are aware that not all plans go smoothly, and no matter how confident they are, they should be careful. For this class, you'll be split into villains and heroes and fight 2 on 2 indoor battles. A girl who was short in height but long in green hair, whose face and costume took on the appearance of a frog, titled her head to the side. 𝗬𝗍𝒂𝒖, her name was. Without basic training. This is the real battle to understand those basics. However, the key this time is that there are no robot to beat up. How will wins and losses be determined? This tone, a tall girl with raven black hair that she had tied up in a high ponytail, asked a question. She mixed with Korean. Momo Yaoyorozu, her name was. Can we beat them up anyway? Of course it was the red-eyed blonde, Katsuki Bakugo, who asked the violent question, with a scowl on his face and in an overly aggressive tone. Will the punishment be expulsion like Mr. Aizawa? Uraraka questioned, unlike Bakugo, asking the right question that everyone wanted to know. How shall we split up? Lita politely raised his hand and asked the question. So proper, he had to be rich. There is an uneven number after all. That was correct, you were the addition. Isn't this cape crazy? A boy with long blonde hair, long eyelashes and bright indigo eyes. He wore a hero costume that was very sparkly, and it was intended. His name was Yuga Oyama. I'll answer all your questions. All Might assured the students who hurled question after question at him. A bead of sweat slid down his face, then he took out a book, from somewhere, and opened it. Now listen here. A script. The situation is that the villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in their hideout. The heroes are trying to dispose of that. The heroes need to catch the villains or get the nuclear weapon back in the allotted time. The villains need to protect the nuclear weapon for the whole time or catch the heroes. This situation feels very American. Again, out of somewhere, All Might pulled a box and explained the purpose. Teams and opponents will be determined by drawing lots. They're being decided so haphazardly. And again, Ida raised his hand, slightly, when he asked the question. Pros often have to create makeshift teams with heroes from other agencies, so maybe that's why. A small smile appeared on Izuku's lips when he made the suggestion. I see. The discernment to look ahead. Lita trailed off as he thought about it, and then bowed his head to apologize. Please excuse my rudeness. It's fine. Let's do this quickly. All Might then proceeded to announce each student's name for their teams and who they were against. But by the time he was finished, you noticed your name hadn't been called. And unfortunately, that meant you were probably not going to be on Izuku's team, seeing someone else was. Wow, it must be fate. I'm counting on you. Uraraka smiled. Her, at this point, was probably usual, bubbly smile. She was partnered up with Izuku, and her eager words earned a nervous head nod from him. Patterson, I'm sure you've noticed that your name wasn't called like the rest. All Might's voice grabbed your attention, and you nodded your head. As you are the addition, your assignment will be a little different. That made you curious. He went on to explain that your job was to sabotage both teams, making it difficult and forcing them to work harder. If you got caught by either side, you lost and they would get bonus points. The first team up is. All Might pulled one card from both of the two. Yes, he has two now boxes. Team A and D. Everyone else, head towards the monitor room. Yes, sir. Team A and D happened to be Bakugo versus Izuku, with their respective partners. And after their teams were called, you noticed tension rise from their intense stare, mostly on Bakugo's behalf. You sighed. This was going to be a long day. OSHU, and it was decided and announced by All Might that the villain team, Bakugo and Ida, would go inside the short 6-story building first. Then, the hero team, Izuku and Uraraka, would enter 5 minutes after. From there, the battle would begin, while you would creep inside somewhere between then. Young Lita, young Bakugo. The two teenage boys were just about to walk in the building when called, and paused to turn to All Might. Learn to think from the perspective of the villains. This is pretty close to real battles. Don't be afraid to get hurt and go all out. Yes, sir. Ida nodded affirmatively and respectfully, in comparison to Bakugo, who had nothing to say and only had an irritated look. Weird for someone who was a huge fan of the hero. If things goes too far, I'll stop it. Yes, sir. It's a lot of work to memorize the building's floor plan. Uraraka thought out loud. Her and Deku were given a map of the building and some time to look over it. But All Might's just the same as when he's on TV. Unlike Mr. Aizawa, it looks like there's no punishment, so we can relax and dash. When she looked over to her partner, who was nervously sweating bullets, she cut herself off and spoke frantically. "You're not relaxed at all." "Well, it's because we're up against Kaken. And there's Lita too. Plus, 𝗧𝗏 will be sabotaging," the nervous boy admitted in a quiet voice, starting down at the floor plan. "So, I feel like I need to be on guard." "You should." The sound of your sudden voice didn't startle him, even though you sort of just appeared. He didn't flinch, nor was he fazed at all, not in that way anyway. Uraraka, however, was caught completely off guard and jumped. "I'm not taking it easy on you just because you're my best friend. And Bakugo, for a fact, won't take it easy on you. So yes, you should have your guard up. No matter if it's training or not, you should always take it serious, especially when it's training." Plus, a small smile appeared on your lips as you raised your hand, a purple glow forming. "You never know what might happen." A promising smile appeared on Izuku's lips. "You're right, I will keep my guard up and be careful." His eyes lowered to your hand that stopped glowing. He grabbed it, urging you to use your quirk so it glowed again while he examined it. "How are you working on your quirk?" He knew you had not used your power much up until now for reasons. He was happy though, he could finally add that to the journal of things about you, on the half-empty section related to your quirk. He left it like that in case you ever did use it. And you are. "I'll tell you that after this is over." You pulled your hand back from his, causing him to look back at you. "Don't want you knowing all my secrets when I'm up against you." "Well, technically I know them already." That was true. If there was a test, schooling even, with you as the subject, he would most ace it with flying colors. Or at least that's what he liked to believe. "Unless you're hiding something from me." He narrowed his eyes playfully at you with a smile. "That I'm going to make both lose." "I hardly call that a secret, Izuku." You narrowed your eyes back at him, and the two of you both laughed a bit. "I'll see you both in few. Be careful." You smiled at him, briefly glancing at Uraraka and giving her a courteous nod before heading inside the building. Uraraka couldn't help but notice, again, how comfortable you two were with each other. Just before you came over, Deku was a timid and nervous, sweating bullets. But when you came over, suddenly he was no longer nervous, his voice wasn't high, he wasn't sweating, and he was talking more freely. A complete opposite of how he was with her. Seeing you both interact, she anticipated the day his nerves would die down with her and talk as freely and comfortably as he does with you. She wasn't sure how long you two were friends, but she hoped to catch up soon. He seemed like such a sweet and caring guy, maybe even a little funny too. When it was the heroes' team to go inside of the building, they went through a window, in case they're an opposing player waiting for them there. The two cautiously walked down the halls, trying to navigate their way towards the location of the bomb. That was their main goal. The villain team apparently had a bomb somewhere in the building, and the heroes had to locate it and stop it from being detonated. Suddenly, while creeping through the halls, Bakugo appeared and aimed an explosion towards the two. Thankfully though, Deku grabbed Uraraka and dodged the explosion. There was smoke everywhere, making it hard to see. So, Bakugo swiped his hand through, and revealed himself standing before them with a cocky smirk. Just as Bakugo was going for another attack, Deku grabbed his arm and slammed him on the ground, back hitting the floor. The action took the blonde by surprise, not just because Deku was brave enough to attack him so harshly or at all, but also because Deku was strong enough to do so, and effortlessly. It was clear now that Deku was not the same from middle school, nor elementary. And perhaps, maybe he was always like this, and was now confident enough to show it. Tension rose between them, Bakugo with anger and Deku with determination. The two teenage boys started to fight one-on-one, their very painfully long history being shown just from the intensity of said battle. While this was going on, Uraraka had snuck off to reach the bomb that Ito was guarding as planned. Unknowingly to everyone, you were also there sneaking around. Your job was to sabotage, and that's exactly what you did, unaware of what was going on a few floors down. And that's when all hell broke loose. ///. Not gonna lie, I didn't think it would take 3 hours just to rewrite a single chapter. Luckily the story is speeding up like I wanted. 𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗵𝗲 Japan, 𝗂𝒑𝗄𝐻. Second person, girl was used to crying at the young age of only 6 years old. She had often cried so much, her body would strain and become sore by the time she fell asleep. Oddly enough, crying had been comforting because it was the only thing that put her to sleep. Today was one of those days you found yourself crying after being beaten. You sat in a corner, your body shaking in pain at the young age of 5 years old, while your father stood before you with a belt in one hand and a can of bear in his other. You didn't know what you had told one to anger him this time. But then again, you never knew what triggered him to beat you numb. Sometimes you felt as if there was no real reason, as if he just did it because he could. And that was true, there was not much of a big reason, or a real reason for that matter, for why your father did this to you. With a mix of the 𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗁, drags and the fact that you heavenly resembled your mother, who he also beat. There was a number of reasons, but none of them were good ones. They were simply excuses. There was something wrong with him. Something really wrong with his mind and the way he decided to live his life. As Mitsuki would constantly remind your mother, once an abuser, always an abuser. But how could your mother leave when he had given her yet another child? Every time she tried, he would give her yet another one. She was down to her third child as she was pregnant. How long would she allow this man to trap her in that loveless marriage filled with pain, sorrow, and excuses? She'd learn to be strong, if not for herself, then for her children. She had to. You looked up at your half-Indian and half-African father, 𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗏, with tears in your eyes. Your teary eyes did nothing but made him angry, which had him throw the empty can of bear at you. Stop all your thing crying. The man yelled, grabbing you by the wrist and pulling you up. His grip on your hand left bruises as he screamed at you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please stop. I'm sorry. You pleaded with tears steaming down your face, but it was useless. Your father just punched and punched and punched, while you cried and cried and cried your little heart out. Help. Somebody. Please save me. No one saved you. 𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗏 There was an overwhelming amount of different negative emotions, such as fear, that coursed through you. It was deep within and it all rooted from your past, which you very rarely spoke about with others. It took a long time to get to the point that you are unbothered about the past and moving forward. It took a lot of therapy, which you're still in. Vulnerability wasn't something you took lightly, that's why you vowed to never show it again. Yet, despite all of that, Izuku and 𝗵𝗃𝗄 were your childhood best friends, maybe even lifelong. It was something you hardly admitted verbally but expressed through action. They truly held different places in your heart. Outside of your family, they were precious to you. But, when the two fought so emotionally and fiercely, resulting in 𝗵𝗃𝗄 having a panic attack and Izuku sustaining terrible injuries and being sent to the infirmary, you felt no uncertainty. Your heart was not torn. You didn't struggle picking a side. The friendship you had with 𝗵𝗃𝗄, over the years, grew fragile. It was you who made the attempt to be his friend, and it was you who slowly distanced herself over the years. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 reminded you too much of the sorrow you felt in your personal life, not just with the deep-rooted issues in your family, but also with the bullying you experienced yourself at one point. It was hard to view him with hope when all he brought around people was dread. You understood him. Understood his lack of identity, understood the weight and burden of perfectionism on him, understood he was groomed to be a king and that was just something he naturally couldn't be. But as much as you understood him, you could not excuse what he did to people. What he did to Izuku. Truthfully, you never understood how Izuku could forgive him so easily. How he could let 𝗵𝗃𝗄 off for all he's done, for all the trauma instilled in him because of that boy. You knew that if it were you, all hell would break loose because you were not so kind. Not so easily forgiving. Not so friendly. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 was not just a bully, he was an abuser. Being a child does not excuse what he said and did. He knew what he was doing because he's still doing it. He knew better and he didn't care. Not enough. And you couldn't ignore that. Many other people could, from a distance, because they won't ever have to experience it, so they stupidly romanticize abuse like it's beauty, but you could not. Katsuki was an abuser and bully, Izuku was a victim, and forgiving him so easily looked like Stockholm Syndrome. The strain on your friendship, although you distanced yourself, it was not you who brought about it, that was Bakugo. No amount of self-guilt that he has yet to feel, or burdens on him, or anything else would change what he's done and has yet to change. If you had known about what he said to Izuku that day, if you had known that he had told Izuku to kill himself, Bakugo wouldn't have no true hatred, Tuesday pain and sorrow, true trauma until then. Towards the end of the school day, you headed to the school nurse's office, recovery girl. A couple knocks was all it took for her to open the door, and when you told her why you were there, she led you to him. And that's when you saw your green-haired best friend lying unconscious on the nursing bed. Patience, you mumbled to yourself. That's all I'm asking for. Patience. It was a quiet prayer to whoever was listening above, hopefully your ancestors who loved you enough to give you more. All Might was in the room as well. Of course he was there despite being half the reason Izuku was there in the first place. He said he would stop the battle if it went too far. He very clearly lied. He watched it escalate, the students asked him to stop it and he chose to wait it out. And look how that ended. Now, he was being scolded by Recovery Girl for being reckless with his teachings, because she also apparently knew about the quirk thing. And while she did, you ignored them and sat down at one of the chairs by his bed, moving it closer to him. You didn't like the distance. There was a consequence, a huge weakness. Of course there was. You weren't naive enough to think he would inherit the quirk, it would just end there. Of course there would be backlash. That was a lot of power. You could tell from the energy shift in his body, his new average energy was not the same average as a normal person, it was closer to yours. Undoubtedly there would be more to it than getting a quirk. No one can become as great as All Might overnight, or just with his quirk. Work needed to be put into being great. Training, determination, and insanity. All of which Izuku had, especially that insanity person. That boy was actually crazy, just cute enough to cover it up. All of that was to be expected, but what you at least hoped was to be strong enough to witness it. But as it turns out, you're not. Even though you're the one experiencing it, it's not your call on whether he should stop or not, and you wouldn't ever want him to give up his dream either way, as much as it hurts. Still, you can't watch him hurt himself, watch him break himself to be a hero. It was heart-shattering and you feared you were not strong enough to watch, already knowing this was only the beginning. How long? The sound of your voice, even when quiet, paused the conversation between the two adults in the room. They both turned to you, urging you to speak further. How long till his body is strong enough to withstand his quirk? Estimated time. There was a moment of quiet before All Might's voice rung through. It won't always be like this. His body will get used to it, I'm sure of it. It was an effort, an attempt to reassure you. But you didn't quiver your gaze, it remained in Izuku as you weaved your fingers through his hair with an oddly calm expression and feel. The year. From what I could gather with his battle, my estimate is a year, maybe less. He's a fast learner, and very determined. I have faith he will 𝗵𝒅𝒄𝒃 and excel. There was no response. You only nodded. A year, maybe less. Seeing him break his body, having to aid him on repeat for a year. He was already becoming a gym rat, straining his body when he works out and trains, and even that was hard enough to watch. Yes, you were used to taking care of him, you had for the last 11 years of your friendship. Always putting his health first, always caring for him, always supporting him and making sure he feels loved, platonically. But this was different. No one was hurting him, he was hurting himself. And you can't stop that, you can't save him from himself. You shouldn't have to, anyway. Despite what you wanted, which was for him to not hurt himself, you knew that you couldn't force a thing from him. This wasn't about you, this was about him and his goal. And who were you to get in the way of that? No matter what you wanted, it wasn't your choice. And you had to deal with that. Maybe you don't want to be a hero. If this was the job description, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you cared too much, in some cases, maybe not enough. As intimidating and quiet as you may appear, you have a big and sensitive heart. And being a hero seems like it would. And you didn't like pain. Okay. With a final gentle rub of Izuku's skin, you stood up from the chair and grabbed your back. Thank you. You gave a thin smile to All Might and a polite nod to Recovery Girl, then headed for the door. Goodbye. Young Patterson. Thank you. You repeated with a small smile and soft eyes, your words holding more weight than before. You meant it and he saw it. You were thanking him for helping you, thanking him for giving Izuku this appealing opportunity, and thanking him for giving you a brief feel of your grandmother. But it was time to come back to reality. Goodbye. The door closed behind you and you left. You didn't cry, you didn't frown, your face was a void of emotion other than that smile that loosened. You looked out the large windows, the sun would go down soon. It was such an appealing day outside. How pretty. As you walked, you drifted away from the school you were in, and thought about others. Originally, before deciding to be a hero, a year ago, you were deciding whether you should join the FBI like your brother, and be a profiler instead. Or if you should try to get a business degree and create your own company. You always had big dreams that collided with your big heart. With the final few steps, you left UA, the school for heroes. You didn't turn back because you feared your attention would be taken, your decision would be swayed. And you were firm about choice. So, you kept walking and got in the car, where your mother waited for you. Goodbye, UA. Good luck, Izuku. OSHU. And hours later, the moon had fully rose in the sky, you finally woke up from your nap. Almost immediately after getting home, you took a shower and went to sleep. When you woke up, the sun had gone down and the moon was out. You looked around the dark room, yawning and stretching your sore limbs. Then, you got up and used the restroom in your room, the light almost blinded you. After that, you walked back in your dark room, suddenly much darker than before, and grabbed your phone. You had yet to open it, you just grabbed it and walked out of your room, then downstairs. Morning, Sleeping Beauty. You heard the sound of your mother's voice say in English with a light South African accent. You walked in the kitchen, see her wiping down the stove and countertops. She must have just put the food up. Morning, Ma. You replied, giving her a kiss on the geek, but furrowing your brows when you realized the time. Wait, no, it's night. You rubbed your temple and she chuckled. I put your plate in the fridge. I figured you'd wake up soon, and you barely ate today, so I knew you would hungry. The best mother you could ever ask for, if you could ask for one, she knew you so well. Thank you. You're the bestest. You smiled as you opened the microwave to see your plate inside. You closed the door, put in a number, and let your food heat up while you leaned against the island counter. How was work? 𝗵𝗖𝒌𝒖 Patterson, the mother of the Patterson family household. Their children, 2 girls and 1 boy, who was already out the house, graduated college years ahead of his age group, has a stable career, and is married. She worked in finance, specifically she was an independent financial planner. She could do her job both in office and at home. Today, however, she went to office. The usual, but one of my clients tried to cheat me out my money. They tried to pay me less than what I was owed. That was irritating. But I got my money, so I'm good. A very simple woman at heart, very kind and caring, but she does not play about her money, her work, and never about her kids. What about you? How was your day? Well, my best friend got sent to the infirmary because he shattered his bone. My other friend caused the injury and had a panic attack. And I decided to quit being a hero and establish schools. You grabbed your food out of the microwave and set it on the island counter, sitting in one of the high chairs. So, you know, the average Tuesday. Did you talk to your best friend about? That made you pause the fork you lifted, realizing that you had yet to tell Izuku of your decision. You sighed, dreading the conversation that you know he won't agree with. You have to tell. Eventually, he's going to find out. That was true, you can't keep switching schools and career paths a secret. But you still hated the thought of telling him, and your mother could see it on your face. There's more to it, isn't there? You didn't respond, just continued eating. That was enough of a reply for her to understand. Do you not want to tell him because you know that part of you still wants to be a hero? Or do you not want to tell him because you don't want to talk about why you really left? Your mother always read you well. It was like she shared your brain and had access to your thoughts. Both. It was hard to lie to your mother, so you very rarely did. And that was the truth, and your mother already knew that. Kinda want to be a hero, but today was scary. Scary how? 𝗵𝗖𝒌𝒖, your mother, leaned against the island counter on the side across, and looked directly at you, giving you her full attention. I don't know, I guess it just got too real. You took another large bite of your food, and your mother raised her eyebrows, urging you to continue. Being a hero takes a lot of self-sacrifice, and it's a guarantee that you'll get hurt, maybe beyond true recovery. It's not just about seeing Izuku get hurt and knowing that'll be a constant thing. But I will get hurt. And I don't like pain. I don't like her. I'm not as brave as he is. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I've already been there. It's not the same, but pain is pain, and I don't want to feel that way ever again. There was a moment of silence. You played with your food a little while staring at it, and then continued to eat. Your mother watched for a minute, and then smiled. Okay. Okay. You furrowed your brows with your expression showing confusion. What do you mean? You looked at her, but took another bite of your food. It was really good, your mother was a great cook. Okay. She repeated the word and walked around the counter. If you don't want to, then you don't have to. I won't force you to choose a career path, it's your life. But I will give you a week to decide what you want to do. You have therapy in a few days, I'm sure your therapist will help you decide. She gave you a gentle and tender hug. But I want you to know that I'm very proud of you. You've come so far and you're very intelligent. She kissed the top of your head and whispered, I love you. I love you too. So, besides all the craziness of today, did you enjoy it? Being a hero? 𝗵𝗖𝒌𝒖 asked, letting you go with a final run of your shoulder and walking back around to the pantry. You know Grandma was a hero, and I know you were very close to her before she died. Did you feel connected to her, in some weird but oddly spiritual way? Like in the movies? Kinda, but not really. You took another bite of your food, taking some seconds to chew and swallow, before continuing. I was just wondering if I heard, saw, and felt all the things 𝗵𝗲 did when she was a hero. Like, did she have a teacher who gave a test on the first day, and said he would expel the student with the lowest score? I doubt it, but who knows, maybe she did. Your homeroom teacher is 𝗧𝗵𝗲 𝗧𝗏, right? 𝗵𝗃𝗲's mentor. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was your older brother, 𝗬𝗏 Patterson. He is the youngest and smartest member in his FBI task force, only being 22 years old, 6 years older than you. And he was already married with the woman he's been with since he was 15. Your brother was a prodigy. Yes, he's my teacher. You nodded your head and took another bite, while your mother grabbed a few snacks and went to the fridge. I almost didn't recognize him at first because I was used to seeing him in more casual attire outside of school. Before your mom could reply, your little sister came rushing down the stairs. Mom, I need help with my homework. She shouted in Japanese as she ran down them. When she walked in the kitchen and saw you, she immediately went to hug you. Oh, you're up. What do you help with, Dimple? Dimple was the nickname your mother gave your little sister, 𝗵𝗲 Patterson, for obvious reasons. Your little sister is about 5 to 6 years younger than you. She turned 11 a few short months ago. She is very intelligent, ahead of her age group, and extroverted. She is also heavily involved in school, she wants to be a healer, and her quirk is perfect for that. Geometry. Like said, she was very intelligent for her age, like you and 𝗬𝗏. All of you were years ahead of your age groups. Apparently it's a family thing, because your mother was the same. But you all have different passions and interests, just good in school. Can you help me? She looked at you. I haven't done geometry since I was 11. And I hated it, so I definitely won't be much help. You probably know more than me. You hummed a laugh, using your fork to pick up some more food and turning to 𝗵𝗖𝒌𝒖. Ma, I think you need to help her. I haven't been to school in years, I only remember what's relevant to my job. Your mother spoke in a humorous tone, not looking up from the food she had on the counter. Either call your brother and his wife, or use Google. I'll call 𝗧𝗪𝗍. Amara said in English. 𝗧𝗪𝗍 was your brother's wife. She was currently in med school. She might be asleep though, so I might use Google. She walked around the counter and looked at what her mother was making. Is that lunch for tomorrow? Yes, and mine. I have to meet with one of my clients. 𝗵𝗖𝒌𝒖 sighed at the thought. You wondered if it was the same client who tried to pay her less than what she was owed. Everybody, to the living room. We're watching a movie. That immediately brought a happy smile on Amara, who practically gleamed. Can it be animated? You looked at your mother for a response. You also loved animated movies. Yes, we're watching Shrek. When Nyari answered, Amara squeezed her in a hug and practically skipped to the living room. A few seconds later, you heard the TV turn on. There was a moment of silence until your mother spoke up. Are you going to check your phone? You gave her a confused look. You've been sleeping for a while, and school ended hours ago. I'm sure your best friend would like to know if you're okay. Oh yeah. You grabbed your phone and turned it on, seeing that Izuku sent you over 45 messages and called you 14 times while you were sleeping. From the text, they were all about where you were, why you left school, if you were okay, and why you weren't answering the phone. You opened the Messages app to reply, but then you stopped. What would you say? How would you tell him that you decided to quit being hero after 2 days? How would you tell him the real reason why? How would he react? Questions and more traveled through your head. And you settled for a simple message, turned off your phone and watched the movie with your family. Okay. Good night. //. So, how are you feeling about the family? We're starting to get into some of the lore, and the backstory is coming soon. OSHU in Japan, Patterson home. Second person, young African girl at the age of 5 sitting down on the swings of the playground. She stared at the sky, not saying a single word as she slowly rocked her swing a bit as she sat by herself, not paying much attention to anyone else. You were never an extroverted person as a young girl because you was constantly silenced. Starting with the fact that while everyone was 4, you were 5. Your first year was homeschool, but when you went to actual school the next year, they never put it in the system. So, unlike everyone else, you had to repeat kindergarten. This lined up with your second reason you were so introverted, your lack of communication skills. Growing up at first, you spoke your first language, English, till the age of 4. When school started, you had to learn Japanese. It was the reason you were homeschooled. As you were still very young and learning a second language, you often struggled. That gave racist kids something to bully you about, other than stereotypical things. You were still learning as you were only 5. But you stiggled a lot. Maintains a conversation was very hard. Which is why you decided to go mute. You only spoke outside of your home when it was absolutely necessary, and that was rare times. So, for the first few months of school, it was hard to make friends. Mainly because you didn't want them. There was so much bullying that you didn't believe you could even make friends. That's why you hated school. There wasn't anyone that looked like you. How could anyone understand you, or be nice to you when they only cared for your skin color? And that's why you wished to live in the West African country, Mali, rather Japan. Whenever you'd visit Mali to stay in contact with your heritage, everyone looked like you. They understood you. You even had a boy best friend there, 𝗵𝗃𝗄𝒄𝒄. And for that reason, you wished you had lived there instead. But you didn't. As you were minding your own business on the swings, you felt eyes on you. So, you took a quick glance around and noticed a few Asian girls laughing while pointing at you. It was only for a couple of seconds. That's how long you looked at them before reverting your eyes back to where they were previously and minding your business. But a couple seconds was all it took to anger them. The group of girls approached you. You tried your best to ignore as you maintained your gaze on the clouds in the sky. But that wouldn't drive them away, it only fed into their anger. What is a freak like you doing staring at us? A small girl with black shoulder-length hair shouted at you. You're so weird and quiet. Isn't your kind supposed to be loud? Instead of reply, you just took a deep breath and held your head down. You hoped that if you ignored her, then maybe she'd go away. At a young age, you learned hope was useless if you didn't plan to make it happen. When you didn't respond or look at her, that angrier the young raven-haired girl. So, she slapped you in the face and pulled your hair, which was in 2 pigtails with 2 red and white bows. Are you even listening to me? You mutt. The girl yelled at you as she pulled your hair, her friends laughing and pointing to at you as if it were some kind of comment show. Speak. It was like an order, like she was ordering you or dating you to. You clenched your teeth as you felt the pain of her pulling on your hair. It hurt a lot. Your eyes were practically glued to the ground, but the color turned dark purple as anger filled your veins. Hoping was absolutely useless. If you want something, you had to FO it yourself. And that's what you planned on doing. The raven-haired girl went to slap you again. This time you were ready to strike back. But before anything could happen, someone grabbed her hand and stopped her from slapping you. I hate people like you. What does her skin even have to do with anything? The voice caused the girl to gasp. She turned to see a blonde-haired boy with red eyes glaring holes into her skin. Let her hair go. No. The girl quickly let go of your hair, feeling fear run through her body. The grip the boy had on her arms started to hurt. Ow! Touch her again and I'll hurt you, the boy said before pushing her on the ground. The little girl stared up at him horrified before quickly getting up and running away with her friends. Surprise filled your veins as you stared at him while he turned his attention to you. Your eyes changed back to its original eye color the minute you no longer felt anger. But he saw the sight before it disappeared. There was no words exchanged between you two, only silence in that moment. 𝗬𝗵𝗲 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝒃. Her hair. It's messed up, you heard him mumble to himself in a different language that you did not understand. Then he walked closer to you and fixed your hair back to how it was before. I'm a bully, or a bad person, whatever you want to call it. So, don't tell anyone about this. All right. You only nodded your head on reply, staring at him with nothing but surprise. Then he walked away before anyone could see the interaction. At that point in time, you didn't realize who the boy was. But from just that one exchange, you could tell he was a foreigner like you just from the language SWs. And you didn't believe he was a bad guy like he called himself. No one bad would show that kindness to you. So, from then on, you always kept your eyes on him, as did he for you. You didn't know it yet, but he would later on be your best friend. Katsuki Bakugo. OSHUN. The week passed by both painfully slow, and at times, quick enough to distract and feel anxious. For the most part, you avoided Izuku. It was not easy because you usually either talk to him or see him every day. But you haven't seen him the past few days, ignored his calls, and only sent a couple texts to let him know you were fine. Clearly you were not. And he knew that. While staying home, you looked through the schools you got accepted to or were offered to go. Some were colleges, and you mostly paid attention to those. You were thinking about what you would major in if you did, that would help choose a college. And you did speak to your therapist about it, and she helped you process your thoughts and feelings. But that only made you realize that you did in fact want to be a hero. You were just letting the trauma of your past control your future. Whenever something became too real and serious, or made you too emotional, you backed away. These days, you did that a lot, even with your own feelings and personal relationships and friendships. Years ago, you never saw yourself to be one. You had heard Izuku and Katsuki set that as their goal and go on rants idolizing the career in different ways. But you never thought you would want to do it, despite it being your grandmother's passion. You looked at the world and society today and wondered if hero was just a word, or an act, a feeling, or a person. What is a hero? There needed passion, you acknowledged it. You needed to have a deep understanding and sense of belonging, sense of justice and empowerment. There needed to be a goal, something that would make you want to risk your life for people that would never truly be grateful. You needed a reason. It needed to be your purpose. It took some time, but you found it. Your reason, the purpose. You found a passion, something to care for that would motivate you to succeed. Motivate you risk your life for people who wouldn't do the same for you. You found your goal, your understanding, the justice and empowerment. But you still wondered, what is a hero? Hey coward, have you eaten yet? The irritating sound of Bakugo's voice filled your ears when you answers his phone call. This was one of the few times he's actually called you, and not the other way around. Bakugo was an introverted person. Some may find that hard to believe, but he was genuinely a quiet person that kept mostly to himself until bothered. The unfortunate part is, he's always bothered by any and everything. I just finished taking a shower after my workout. I was planning on ordering or something. Your mother was meeting a new client today, and your sister was with your brother and his wife since today wasn't Saturday, and he promised to take her to an amusement park this weekend. Open the door. You furrowed your eyebrows with a confused look, one he couldn't see through the phone. Then, you heard a knock at the front door, and you sighed. You hung up the phone and got up from the living room sofa, pushing your glasses up on your face. You opened the door and was met with a red-eyed blonde, who stared back at you. Your arms crossed to your chest. "What are you doing here, cat?" "Being annoyed," he replied with a straight face. You rolled your eyes and widened the door to let him walk in, locking the door behind him. "Where's your mom and sister?" "With a client, and with my brother and sister-in-law at an amusement park." You answered in short, yawning as you streetcars your arms. You were tired. You woke up early to work out, trying to be consistent with your workout routine. "Why you here, Katsuki? Did you make a decision?" He answered your question with another, and you just stared at him as he entered your kitchen. You watch him grab things from your fridge and pull out a couple pots. Then he paused and stared at you. "About UA and being a hero. Did you decide whether you're staying or not?" "Yes, I made a decision." You walked over to the island counter and leaned on it. He continued to stare at you, waiting for a response that you didn't give. "Why do you care?" He didn't respond, just turned around and started cooking. "I'm serious. Don't ignore me or give me that stupid insult bullshit. Why do you care whether I be a hero or not?" "Because you have to." "But because you are." That caused you to furrow your brows. You didn't understand. He sighed but didn't turn around. "You are a hero already. You've been a hero for a while now. So you have to go to UA. You have to train. And you have to be an official hero. I need to see your name on charts and rankings. I need to know that you're there. I need to." He paused, closing his eyes and leveling himself. "I need you be a hero. I need to see it. I have to." There was a small moment of silence and you stared at him. Well, more specifically, you stared at his back. After a few long seconds, he went back to cooking. You watched with a thought-filled mind. Is this about sludge villain? It was the first thing that came to mind. Was this his way of thanking you or something? Calling you a hero to convince you to be one? For whatever reason? Seriously, that doesn't matter. I'd rather not think about that, and I'm sure you wouldn't want to either. You didn't like your picture and videos of you being all over the news. Thankfully, your mother immediately had it taken down by threatening to sue. He paused and turned around. You saw his face again and you could hardly decipher what he was thinking and feeling. But it was complex, you could tell that much. This isn't about that. God, do you really not realize it? You only stared and did a slight shake of your head, and he sighed. Of course you don't. That's normal for you. Even more reason for you to be a hero. What the hell are you saying? At this point it felt like he was either just saying things just to purposely confuse you, or he was confessing. And you were hoping it was neither, that would either piss you off or scare you. Sonny, you are already a hero. That nickname. You had forgotten the last time he used it. It was back when you were kids. He called you that because despite how mean everyone saw you to be, you were the most caring. You've been a hero since we were kids, and you don't realize it. Why do you think that Deku was constantly trying to convince you to be one? As stupid as it is that he's trying, you need to be there. Everyone sees it but you. You're the only one that doesn't realize you were meant for it. I can't believe I'm saying this SHT, but it's true. He shook his head and looked you in the eyes. You have to be a hero because you are one. Another moment of silence consumed the room and the two of you in it. This time, he didn't turn around or look away. He stared you in the eyes and watched your reaction, waiting for you to speak. And to be quite frank, you didn't know what to say. You didn't expect his truth, for him to see you in such a way, or admit it. He saw you as a hero. For Izuku, that would be more understandable. But Katsuki, you didn't see what he saw in your friendship. Other than the sludge villain, you couldn't think of a time you saved him. In fact, you could only remember a time he saved you. When you were younger and just met back with those bullies. That was the first and only time, and you don't remember ever repaying the favor until a year ago. I'm staying at UA. You revealed, and he almost immediately closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The reaction surprised you, but you didn't show it. I already informed our homeroom teacher the reason for my recent absences and my decision to stay. I'll be back in class on Monday. Good. He nodded his head and turned around, going back to cooking. And for the next hour, it was like that. He cooked while you sat at the island counter and watched. And when he finished making you breakfast, the two of you sat in the living room watching a movie. Not even 30 minutes into the movie, you heard the sound of the doorbell ring. You were already finished with your plate, so you got up and rinsed it off in the sink before setting it down and heading for the door. It was a movie you had already seen before several times, so you didn't ask Bakugo to pause it. First you looked through the peephole and froze at who you saw. Of course he was here. He couldn't go much longer with your dry responses and refusal to see him. Such a needy friend he was. It took 5 days for him to come running to you. You're surprised it didn't take longer. Maybe he heard his mother, 𝗵𝗂𝗵𝗲 𝗔𝗂𝗁, taking to yours about you deciding today, and decided to wait. You wouldn't be surprised. When you opened the door, you were met face to face with your green-eyed best friend, Izuku 𝗵𝗃. He opened his mouth to speak, probably to say the speech he had been preparing on the walkover. But the words died in his throat shamefully when he saw your attire. A gray oversized shirt that, with tight mid-thigh black shorts and slides. Your natural hair was done in a twist out. It looked very appealing. And you wore clear glasses that made your eyes look a little bigger than what they were. Izuku swallowed, forcing his gaze away from your attire and focus on your eyes. I wanted to talk to you. You've been ignoring me and shutting me out, and I don't like that. If you don't want to be a hero, that's okay. I won't force you, but please talk to me. I'm going to be a hero. You smiled at his surprised look. He clearly prepared a whole speech about this, just for you to throw it all out the window. Sorry about not answering. I needed some time to figure it out, but I'm okay now. For real this time. Why did you question it? What made you doubt yourself? This time it was him who surprised you. You were expecting that question for a response. Was it me? Did I? He trailed off with a shaky and saddened gaze, and you frowned. No, Izuku, no. You shook your head and grabbed his wrist, gently tugging him to you and giving him the option to walk. And he did. He let you lead him to you, gently pulling him inside the house and locking the door behind him. His eyes drifted around to the living room, where he saw Kaken busy eating breakfast and watching the movie. When the blonde looked over, their eyes met before he rolled them and looked back at the movie. The freckled boy let you lead him upstairs, down the hall, and into your room. He's been there many times before, so when you let his wrist, which he frowned at, he sat down on your bed and watched you lock the door. If it was any other girl's room, he probably would have been a nervous wreck, but it was you, so he was very comfortable. He watched you walk over, his gaze slightly dropping briefly before meeting your eyes as you sat beside him. Again, his eyes dropped to where your thighs pressed against the bed and seemed to get fuller. His heartbeat sped up in his chest for a few seconds before his eyes raised when he heard your voice. You remember what happened with my father, right? You asked and stared in his eyes, and he nodded. That sentence alone seemed to be enough for him to understand most of why you backed out. Well, that day when you fought against Kat and got hurt, it reminded me of past with violence. Not just with my father being an abuser, but with my problems with self-harm. I unfortunately have a track record of violence. And seeing you purposely hurt yourself reminded me when I did the same thing. And I don't want to watch that. I can't. Old habits. You had a history of severe depression and anxiety. You did do self-harm for a long time. Eventually that trickled into an eating disorder, where you were not eating properly, or at all. And then it ended with you attempting suicide 3 times, and being forced in mandatory therapy after going to a mental hospital. After a couple therapists, you finally found one you liked and have been going to her ever since. You came a long way in healing and loving a healthy life, and you wanted to keep it that way. I really care about you, Izuku. I might not say it enough or express it enough, but I really do. I've always cared about you. You are my priority. And I don't like seeing you hurt or in pain. It upsets me. And this quirk of yours. You trailed off and sighed, looking away from him. I'm happy you're achieving your dreams, and I'm proud of you for working so hard and believing in yourself. But I don't like that you have to break yourself just to get what you want. If I could, I would give you my quirk so it would hurt less. I'm not that good with it anyways, so maybe you'll have more luck. You paused and looked back into his gorgeous eyes. I just want you to be okay, Izuku. I really care about you, and I don't know what I'd do if something terrible happens to you. It was true, it wasn't something you said often. You struggled expressing yourself and being open, you were very quiet and concealed. But you tried to show it through actions and gestures as best as you could. That was partially why you took on painting, knowing you were not one to be so open about your feelings. Like this, made Izuku feel warm. You were putting your heart on display for him, and it was appealing. He loves your vulnerability. I understand. I care about you too. I didn't realize hurting myself made you feel that way, and I'm sorry. I should have known. I felt the same way at one point. Unfortunately, I can't promise that I'll stop. I have to hurt in order to grow. But I will promise you that I'll be careful. He took your hands and held them gently, staring you directly in the eyes. You are my priority. I care about you. You are my best friend, my biggest supporter, at times my protector, but mainly my hero. Everything I do, every movement I make, is in your best interest. I want you to be comfortable and not have to worry about anything. So please tell me when you're not feeling okay, or if you're upset, or anything. Please tell me so I can make it right for you. Your happiness is my goal. I want to be your hero. A smile appeared on your lips and squeezed his hand in yours. You already are. It warmed your heart knowing how deeply he cared for you. Your happiness was his goal. He always moved with your best intentions. You are my hero, Izuku. He smiled and squeezed your hand back. Then he let go, only to pull you into a hug. His eyes closed and breathed in your scent. You always smelt amazing. Your body was so soft in his hands as he hugged you. He wondered if all you were just as soft in your waist. So, you're staying. At UA. I'll be a hero. Good. OSHUN 2 days passed, and it was now Monday morning and you were back at the prestigious high school known mostly for its hero program, UA High. Thankfully there was no real problem with going since you never officially unenrolled, you just stopped going. The only problem with returning is the eyes of your classmates on you. It was quite bothersome. The day continued, and you were quickly brought up to speed on what you missed by Izuku. Hours passed and the day eased through, and after all the academic classes went by, it was slowly inching more and more to the hero training part of the day. Which, being honest, was the most interesting and anticipated part of the day. Good work on last week's combat train on Tuesday. I saw the video and results. Your homeroom teacher's voice brought you back to reality. You looked up to see him standing before the class. You were surprised he didn't speak about this last week. Little did you know he withheld doing so because you weren't there to hear. And good work for all the other training throughout last week. He added, his gaze drifting over to a specific blonde with vibrant red eyes. Bakugo, you're talented. So, don't act like a kid. I know. And Midoriya. His eyes drifted to the timid boy who immediately became nervous. You settled it by breaking your arm again. You can't continue saying you can't help it because you can't control your quirk. I don't like repeating the same thing over and over. He sighed. As long as you fix the control issue, there's a lot you'll be able to do. Feel a sense of urgency, Midoriya. Yes, sir. Throughout this, you stared out the window while he spoke. You were surprised you hadn't missed too much in class. With how rigorous the program you're in is, not just hero-wise but academically too, you should have been struggling to catch up. But you weren't, oddly enough. It seemed to slow its pace when you were gone and pick back up when you returned. And Patterson. The sound of your name grabbed your attention, and you turned your attention towards the source. Your homeroom teacher, Aizawa. You were surprised to hear him call on you, considering you didn't do anything that made you particularly stand out, other than being quiet and mysterious. But that's more of a personality trait than a skill. I wasn't quite sure if I'd see you today. But it's good that you are. He watched your eyes widen in surprise and fix your posture. You are a knowledgeable student. Therefore, should you ever doubt your stay here again, you report to me. Do I make myself clear? For a blissful second, you stared eyes wide with shock. You didn't think he'd care so much. But you quickly dropped the surprise expression and nodded your head firmly. Understood. Not only was Aizawa familiar with you because of your mother and brother, but he was aware of a few personal things. The school, including teachers, saw all the students' records, including those that are sealed and hidden. When in the hero program, your track record has to be clean. Being a hero was serious. Now with that in mind, you were one of those few students with a sealed record, that he was shown like all students. Fortunately, you didn't go to juvie or did anything terrible, but unfortunately, you did have a history of violence, hospitals, and mandated therapy. There was a conversation he had with your mother prior to you joining the class, regarding your sealed records. Some of which had already knew from being familiar with the family, but there was lots he did not know. Like the suicide attempts and mental hospital you were placed in at 12, and then sued for what your mother learned they did to you once you returned home more damaged than when you left. It was all concerning, very worrying. It was mandatory that he spoke to her about your past, not for specific, but just in a general sense. Your sealed record was very alarming. He did the same with Todoroki's sister because of his hospital records and the large scar that was proof of it. Students with worrisome records and show signs of immense trauma were the ones that required extra attention and meeting with their guardian. Aizawa took this seriously. Children's health was his weakness. Niari did not tell all of your business, not just for her sake, but yours as well. But she did explain to him with little detail that you had a history of severe depression and anxiety, and you were in therapy, and you, despite your past with self-harm and SCKED and the mental hospital, you've grown. That was all almost 5 years ago, and you've worked hard to get to where you are. And you've dedicated yourself to being healthy and loving a fulfilling life. You took it seriously. Now, let's get down to homeroom business. Sorry about the late notice, but today, I'll have you. The class panicked a bit when he trailed off, hoping it wasn't a test. Decide on a class representative. There were a few cheers and sighs of relief that it was a normal activity. I want to be class rep, pick me. Ijiro Kirishima, a boy with vibrant red spiky hair and sharp shark teeth, stood up from chair and shouted excitedly. His quirk allowed him to harden his entire body, making it almost or maybe just as tough as metal and rock. Me too. A boy with vibrant yellow, not necessarily blonde, hair with a black lightning bolt shaped to the side, raised his head hand with a big smile and volunteered. Denki Kaminari, his quirk allowed him to produce, control and manipulate lightning. Unfortunately, it scrambles his brain if he uses too much. He's working on getting his brain used to large surges of power. I want to do it too. A girl named Kyokajiro raised her hand, but more nervously than the other two. She had dark and short purple hair, and plug-like earphone jacks that were connected to her ear lopez, which was extra limbs she could control. Her quirky allowed her to hear at different frequencies and release them from her earphone jacks. It's a job for Dash. I'll be the leader. The blonde from a few days ago, Yuga? Aoyama, interrupted the girl with bright pink hair that was styled in an afro and dark brown skin. Mina Ishido. His quirk allowed him to shoot a laser beam from his stomach. Her quirk allowed her to release acid from her body, but whenever she activated her quirk, her skin would turn pink to protect her body from the acid. While all of your classmates started talking, you put your headphones on, leaned your head into your arms that was settled on top of your desk, and closed your eyes. The music played, and you felt your body relax, not drift asleep, just release the tension in your muscles. While the music played, scenarios of all sorts played in your head, changing with each song or lyric. You did this way too often. Apparently it's a mental illness. Adding that to the list. Some minutes and a few songs pass, and you felt a tap on your head. You raised it slightly and peeked to see Bakugo slicking in his seat while handing you a price of paper. Vote, he said and placed it down before turning back around in his seat. You assumed this was his way of telling you that you all were voting for the title of class representative. You slide the paper down a bit, closer to you, and grabbed a pencil. Like mostly everyone else, you voted for yourself because you didn't know anyone, not trust anyone with title. Katsuki was nowhere near close to the tile, and Izuku was too anxious to be either. Not long after everyone casted their votes, the names were written on the board to see who won the most. Surprisingly, it was Izuku who got the most, with 3 votes to his name. But what really came as a shock was that you tied with Yaoyorozu with 2 votes. Momo Yaoyorozu, the girl with long raven-colored hair that she had tied in a ponytail consistently, and who also looked half Korean. Her quirk was creation. She could create anything that understood how it worked, which meant she had to be very smart. Alright, our class rep is Midoriya. Aizawa woke up from his nap to announce, in a yellow sleeping bag he had stored in the class somewhere. And since we have a tie for the deputy class rep, the job will go to both Yaoyorozu and Patterson. What? You stared in disbelief at the announcement. Someone else voted for you. Who could have done that? You had an idea of who, so you were surprised about that part. You were surprised that it meant you would gain a title. When you voted for yourself, it wasn't to get anything out of it, it was simply because you couldn't think of anyone since you didn't know anyone. Eyes straying away from the board, you looked over to the back of the class to see the raven-haired girl. She met your gaze and gave you a small smile and gentle wave. To be polite, you returned the kind gesture, but you were still surprised. Vice Class Rep //. Love Izuku's relationship with the OC, and I can't wait for you all to see more. Bakugo's friendship with OC, if you haven't noticed, is very complex. To confirm, yes, Bakugo technically met her first, and Izuku befriended her first. Slowly, we're getting more and more into the OC and her character and backstory. OSHUN Japan, UA High. Second person, class representative, time had passed through class, and eventually it was Class A's lunch break. Maybe it's cliché, but lunch break was your favorite part of the day. Not just because of the food, although that was as half of the reason. It was also break. It was a break, only 30 minutes apart from ours, but it was a break nonetheless. Time to eat, listen to music, clear your thoughts, relax a little, and maybe even make friends. You didn't plan to make friends, but major things that happen to you usually aren't planned, so who knows? As of currently, you sat at a table by yourself listening to music and reading a book. You had finished the lunch you prepared the day prior, and enjoyed your interracial romance book. You couldn't say with Izuku, and of course he did lead you to him, but you chose not to. Not only did you want some time to yourself, but you wanted Izuku to build a life outside of you. You had been his only friend for years, now he could make more and work on his confidence and social skills. You didn't need to work said skills. You were confident in yourself, even when quiet, and you knew how to speak to people, you just didn't. Someone once described you as an introvert with extrovert tendencies. That was a perfect description in your opinion, especially since you were naturally a leader. It's not that you couldn't be more outgoing and talk more, you just didn't want to. You like the quiet, you're comfortable with yourself, you didn't need someone to give you a purpose or make you feel fulfilled. You could feel that alone. So, for lunch, you sat by yourself listening to music and reading a romance book. Or at least, that was the plan until 3 girls from your class approached you together. Mina, Jiro, and Uraraka. When you paused your music and set your headphones down, the girls sat down with you at the once empty table. Y/N, this is Mina and Jiro. Uraraka gave you what you assumed was her usual bright smile as she introduced the 2 girls, who gave you their own smiles. They were interested in you, and you 3 share similar interests, music. So, I thought maybe you could be friends if that's okay with you. The girl with brown skin and coily pink hair introduced herself. You saw bracelets and charms, one of which with her culture's colors. Mina Ishido, but you can call me by my first name, Mina. In Japan, you address everyone by their last names unless you have a close bond with a person or related to them. Or for foreigners or Japanese immigrants in foreign countries, first names is a personal preference. The girl with chin-length purple hair introduced herself next. I'm Kyoka Jiro, you can call me Jiro. You noticed the headphones around her neck and the dark-colored charm bracelets on her arms. Their enthusiasm came as a surprise to you. They must genuinely want to be your friend. I'm Y/N Patterson, you can call me Y/N, or whatever nickname you can think of. Throughout the years, you've been given many nicknames, but few have stuck. Only Mani and whatifdeku, and those came from your 2 middle names. 𝗵𝗲 𝗔𝗵𝗲. Your full name was Y/N 𝗵𝗲 Patterson. The nickname Mani was given to you by your family from your African middle name Armani, and Vi was thought of by Izuku from your Indian middle name 𝗓𝗵𝗲. Only he calls you Vi. I'll think of something one of these days. Mina playfully winked at you with a grin, before her eyes dropped to your book. What are you reading? Is it good? The Spanish Love Deception by. You dragged out the last word and trailed off, looking for the author's name before showing them cover. 𝗧𝗵𝗲. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. Use such to English to try and pronounce the author's name. It was a barely noticeable swh. Jiro raised her eyebrows curiously and placed her arms on top of the table and leaning closer. It was a gesture to show she was interested and giving you her full attention. Like the name. What's it about? That immediately got your attention and you grew very enthusiastic. So basically, the main character, Catalina Martin, needs a date for her sister's wedding in Spain. Lena lives in New York, by the way. She lied about having an American boyfriend, and it kinda spiraled with lies, so she needed to find someone to be her. She made that whole lie because her ex is the groom's brother, and he'll be there with his fiancée, and she didn't want her family to pity her, so she made the lie. Honestly, she could have just said she was single, because now she has to go through the extra effort to pull of a lie that could have been avoided if she focused more on her sister's wedding than how people view her. But I understand, I'd be petty about my ex getting married while I'm still single, about my ex too. Then this guy, her coworker who she hates, but low-key her reason is kinda stupid because he's actually so kind, patient, and attentive to her. But anyway, his name is Aaron Blackford, a rich and tall white man she works with in New York, and he volunteered to be her pretend boyfriend. But she doesn't want him to, because she's holding a grudge from when they first met, which was just him saying he doesn't want to be her friend, and honestly, same. If I just started working somewhere, I probably wouldn't want to make friend either. I'm only here to do my job and go home. But anyways, he volunteers but she refuses because she doesn't like him. But eventually they make a deal and he becomes her fake boyfriend for the wedding. Not gonna lie, she irritated me a lot throughout this book because she was very stubborn, but not on a good way. Like he kept trying to help her and get close to her, he was even okay with her almost blowing thousands of dollars on another guy at this bidding event, and she was still making it seem like he was terrible. Her communication skills is terrible, and she kept pushing him away just because of a grudge. But eventually, towards the end, she summers down. So, I guess it's excusable. But yeah, that's the book. I tried not to reveal anything major, just the gist. While you explained the book, the girls couldn't help but notice how enthusiastic you were about it. They passed smiles and amused glances at each other, but listened eagerly as you explained the book. From the way you talked about it, they could tell you were definitely a book lover. It sounds really interesting. I think I'm going to buy it. 𝗬𝗏𝗏 was the first to speak mainstream. The three girls who listened to you rant a summary of the book. Do they have it in Japanese? She noticed that yours was in English and she wasn't really fluent in the language. I'm not sure, but I'll check. All of a sudden, commotion arose in the cafeteria and the girls were practically dragged from their seats. Apparently, there was a rumor amongst the crowd of students that there was some kind of break-in and they needed to get to the exit. The loud alarm that went off brought more urgency. A number of students from different programs and years were pushing and shoving each other while yelling loudly, which heavily annoyed you. It was a struggle to navigate through the massive crowd of students who were moving like worms towards the nearest safe zone. The most you could do was hold on to the hand of Mina. And she held onto Jiro's hand, who was also holding 𝗬𝗏𝗏's. It was like a train formation of you all holding onto each other in an attempt to not get lost in the sea of students. So much for my first day back. Your patience was running thin. You did not like being shoved around when you were supposed to be sitting down enjoying your break. If this continued further, you were tempted to start throwing people around with your quirk. That'd be one way to 𝗵𝗃𝒄𝒄𝒃. Thankfully, it didn't take long before someone, 𝗂𝗂𝒂𝒂, managed to shut the commotion down by announcing that it was just a false alarm. Quite frankly, that aggravated you further because that meant you got pushed around for no real reason. Whoever started that rumor and brought on the commotion, they needed to count their days. You would remember this definitely not, and you will come for them too lazy to. You were not one to hold a grudge, but you will start you do not care enough to. OSHU and a week passed by, yes, time flies. The school day flew past, and it was time for the hero part of the day. You leaned the side of your face in the palm of your hand while watching your teacher talk. If you were being truthful, you weren't comprehending a word he was saying, you were zoned out while watching. In your head, you were in the middle of an episode with your favorite character in a show, but you were in the episode with them. Yes, a scenario. Today's training will be a little different. Your homeroom teacher, Aizawa, stood before his class and spoke. Today, there will be 3 instructors. Myself, All Might, and one more person. The boy you remembered to speak Spanish with a tape quirk raised his head and spoke. Hantaciro. Excuse me. What will we be doing? Already expecting that question, Aizawa held up a card that read the word rescue on it. Disasters, shipwrecks, and everything in between. It's a rescue training. Rescue? Kaminari mumbled curiously and then glanced over to Mina. Looks like it'll be a lot of work this time, too. Right. Mina shared a look with him, showing her excitement at the possibilities of the training. Those two were already close. Hey, I'm not done. Aizawa shushed his students and continued on. You can decide if you want to wear your costumes or not. He pressed a button on a remote and everyone's hero costumes came out of the wall in suitcases. Because there are probably costumes that limit your abilities too. The training will be off campus, so we're taking the bus. That's all. Start getting ready. Without much haste, you got up from your and walked over to where your designated suitcase was. But just as you reached for it, someone got first. You turned to see Kaminari. Here you go, pretty. He held it out for you to take. His flirting was quite obvious and it was kind of cute. You raised your brows and grabbed the suitcase from his hand. Thank you. You did a small bow with a small smile and turned to walk away. It took some time for everyone to get ready in the locker rooms, but eventually you were all ready. Aizawa led you all to the bus zone where a bus would soon arrive to take you all to a separate location for today's training. While waiting, you walked over to your green eyes best friend. You noticed he didn't wear his hero costume. Why are you wearing the gym clothes? Where's your hero costume? The support course has to repair my hero costume, so I'm wearing gym clothes until then. I changed a few things, so that's why it's taking some time. His response made you raise your eyebrows curiously. I added some things and got rid of a few others. I want to be the first person to see. I'll make sure of that. He gave a quiet chuckle with a smile. He took notice you weren't wearing your classes. You've been around Jiro, Mina, and Uraraka a lot lately. Are you making friends now? I guess. You shifted your weight on one leg and crossed your arms to your chest. They kind of just approached me and haven't left me alone since. Sort of like you did when we became friends. So, I'm assuming so. He was going to deny that he did that back when you were younger, but it was the truth. He did stick to you after you first met. You gave him a look, 𝗧𝗵𝗲, and he could not to you. Did do that yet? That appealing grin of yours appeared. But look where that brought us. Best friends. That's because I was your only friend. For years. You rubbed your eyes a little too rough, and Izuku quickly grabbed your hand, stopping you from messing up the contacts in your eyes. Who knows, maybe if you had more friends and better social skills, I wouldn't be as prominent in your life. You're making friends now, so maybe one of them will be more important by the next few years or months. Stop rubbing your eye. He grabbed your hand just as you reached to rub it against. And that's not true. You're not important to me because I have no one else. You're important to me because you are everything else. You're not just a friend to me, you're my entire life. No matter how many people I meet or friends I make, you'll always be my first priority. My person. You've taken up so much of my life that it's practically yours. And I like it that way. And it'll stay that way. For a moment, you just stared at him. He was always great with words, never failed to make you speechless. He was such a poet, he spoke about you like he was mentally writing a poem for you. It was sweet. Very sweet. And it wanted your heart. You better uphold that. You narrowed your eyes and released your hand from his. By the end of this school year, you better still talk to me like you do now. We better still be best friends. I better still be important to you. A bright smile appeared on Izuku's face. Best friends. To be truthful, he didn't think that would still do by the end of the school years. More would be better. But for now, he could definitely promise that you'll be important. His number one priority. Promise. That Y/N. The voice of the familiar brunette filled your ears. The two you turned to see Uraraka's walking over with a bright smile. Oh, the tie. Izuku replied nervously and he looked away. His eyes met your narrowed ones, seeing the amusement on your face. Don't say anything. I wasn't going to. You raised your hands up to plead your defense, before crossing them back to your chest leaning your weight on one leg. All I did was look. That's all. I know that look. He did. He knew you very well, too well some might say. He studied you, learned you, and knew exactly how to read you. Knew what made you feel what, how to make you feel better, etc. For you, he knew it all. I'm not looking for a girlfriend, Vi. You hummed and slowly backed away from. You saw Mina and Jiro somewhere, so you turned around to walk to them. I'm serious. He was, and you were aware, but you still found his longing to prove so funny. His face showed his seriousness, it made you smile more. He was so cute when he was all serious and stuff. If only you could take his solemnity serious. Stop backing away. Bye. OSHU and half an hour later, the first-year class of hero students arrived at large building called USJ with their homeroom teacher. The building was also property owned by UA apparently, just a short distance away. The more and more revealed about the school, the more questions of their budget arise. They created things with their sole purpose being to be destroyed. Billions weren't enough, maybe trillions. Once the group of first-year heroes walked inside the USJ building, they were formally greeted by a woman hero named 𝗧𝗵𝗃. She gave the class a speech explaining how quirks can be used dangerously if they're not controlled properly. She used herself and All Might, who had yet to arrive, as an excuse. Her quirks was black hole, which allowed her to SCK anything up into her finger and obliterate it, like black holes in the universe. Very powerful and dangerous. The woman bowed her head at the end of her speech, and most students cheered and praised her for her advice and formal words. She seemed like a very kind woman. If she were a villain, it would be over for a lot of people. Once the cheers and praises for the woman settled down, their homeroom teachers spoke up. All right then, first dash, he was cut out by the lights in the building going out, and water from the fountain at the center of the large space started malfunctioning. A dramatic entrance with a purple warping portal appeared, and face with a hand covering it peeled through, revealing a man with said face and dead chopped-off hands covering his arms walking out. Aizawa turned to see the sudden occurrence and then looked back at his students, reacting quick. Gather together and don't move. He ordered them before looking over to the woman hero. 13. Protect the students. Kirishima saw the guy with hands attached to him walk out of the portal with a bunch of villains following him. What's wrong? Is this like the entrance exam where's the lessons already started? It's a natural disaster rescue lesson, Kirishima. Natural disasters. You stared at him with a blank look. And as you can see, our teacher is just as surprised as us. Use context clues, sweetheart. I failed reading and writing. Stay back. Aizawa instructed his students as he puts on his yellow goggles for his eyes. Those are villains. He focused on the large number of villains walking out of the portal. Coincidentally, during the time you all were supposed to be practicing saving lives, they showed up. 13 and 𝗎𝒂𝒂𝒂. A guy with teal-blue hair, the one with hands all over him, started talking. From the way he spoke, he seemed to be the leader of the villains coming out of the portal. The teacher's schedule we received the other day said All Might was supposed to be here too. The trespassing the other day was the work of these scumbags after all, huh? Aizawa thought out loud, as he stared at the villain who spoke. Where is he? Tamura Shigaraki was his name. I went through the trouble of bringing this whole crowd to All Might, the symbol of peace. I can't believe he's not here. I wonder if he'll come if we kill some of his kids. Aizawa immediately activated his quirk, causing his raven black hair to fly up, along with his grayish binding cloth. Something that was seen as a signal that he was for battle. Yaoyorozu had a thought come to mind and looked from the crowd of villains to her homeroom teacher. Teacher, what about the trespasser sensors? Did they only appear here or around the whole school? Todoroki rephrased, his eyes narrowing. Either way, if the sensors are not responding, that means they have someone with a quirk that can do that. An isolated area separated from the main campus during a time when a class is supposed to be here. Aizawa walked ahead of the class, staring the crowd of villains down. 13. Start the evacuation. Try calling the school. These villains had something to counteract the sensors. It's possible someone with radio wave type powers is interfering. And Kaminari, try contacting the school with your quirk. 2. Yes, sir. What about you, sir? Will you write by yourself? Izuku questioned, his words and facial expressions showing his concern for their teacher. With that many, even if you can erase their quirks. Eraserhead's fighting style is capturing after erasing the enemy's quirks. But a frontal battle is. You can't be a hero with only one trick. Aizawa replied, almost slyly, before glancing at the female pro-hero at his side. I'm leaving it to you, 13. He told her before jumping straight into battle with the villains. While he did that, the students quickly made their way towards the front entrance of the USJ building, which they entered from. But another purple warping portal appeared before them, causing the first tears to come to an immediate. I won't let you leave. A man covered in the purple warp, presumably his quirk, told them. Kurogiri was his name. Nice to meet you all. We are the League of Villains. It may be presumptuous of us, but we invited ourselves into the home of the heroes. UA High School, in order to have All Might, the symbol of peace, take his last breath. Well, he's late, so. You mumbled to yourself in English. You weren't mad at All Might for being late. Outside of being a teacher, he was still the #1 hero and that was still his top priority. He only joined UA for a protege, which he found. All of a sudden, the students were warped in different places surrounded by villains throughout the building. You ended up being in the area called Mountain Zone. And you weren't alone, thankfully. Jiro, Yaoyorozu and Kaminari were with you. Being warped into a different location was a weird feeling. You looked around surprised. Your eyes made contact with your classmates, who all looked just as shocked as you. Then, you all turned your attention to number of villains who stood a distance away, ready to attack. I'm fed. //. So, if you've noticed, I've changed, more like added, a bit of Izuku's character. I'm aware that some might not agree with how I write him, and that's okay. I tried to make him as canon as possible, while also adding depth to his character. We don't see what he's like with some he's close to, Bakugo does not count, they're not as fans stupidly ship them to be. So, I tried to write him how I think he would be like if he was genuinely close with someone, and had raw feelings for. OSHU in Japan, USJ building. Second person, suddenly warped in different areas or rescue zones, throughout the USJ building in different small groups with villains attempting to kill. And this was done by a villain named Kurogiri, who has the ability to create and manipulate a dark fog that acts as a portal that can transport anything it comes in contact with, to another. You ended at an area called Mountain Zone. One could guess easily what it looks like. Thankfully you weren't alone, 3 of your classmates were warped there, too. Jiro, Yaoyorozu, Jiro and Kaminari. Being warped into a different location was a weird feeling. You looked around surprised. Your eyes made contact with your classmates, who all looked just as shocked as you. Then, you all turned your attention to number of villains who stood a distance away, ready to attack. I'm fed. Kaminari ran over to the 3 you girls who stood together. What the heck is up with these guys? He asked, referring to the villains. Worry about that later. Jiro replied as she held on tightly to the weapon in her hand. Created by Yaoyorozu so she could protect herself against the villains. Right now, we need to think about how we'll get away from all these people. Then give me a weapon, Kaminari exclaimed, gesturing the weapon in her hand. You admit, it was a little unfair that he was left to fend for himself, even with what his quirk is. You're the electric guy, aren't you? Hurry up and take care of them. Jiro demanded, dismissing him and his shouting. You didn't agree with that. He was still in early training, so clearly it won't be so easy. You saw during combat training, didn't you? We were paired. Kaminari reminded her of their training class with All Might last week. I can only cover myself with electricity. I can discharge electricity, but it's not like I can control it. I'll hit you 3 to... That gave you an idea. Yaoyorozu, can you make anything that can cover or shield us from his quirk so he can use it more freely, without harming us. That's a good idea. The raven-haired girl smiled and nodded her head, on board with your idea. And I think I have something in mind that I can create. But it'll take some time, if you don't mind covering for me. Take all the rush time you need. You replied, emphasizing her need to rush to show urgency. And she nodded her head, understanding this. Guess it was time to put those martial arts to good use. A villain shouted as it rang towards. It threw a punch, which you dodged and grabbed their forearm. Using that grip, you pulled them close and knees them in the face, before adding a reverse turning kick. With another villain, you kicked in the stomach with your right leg and swiftly used your left to kick them in the face. There was a metal pole on the ground, so you did a backhand spring to grab it, twirled in your hand, and knocked 3 different guys out. Oh, this is nice. You mumbled to yourself in English while staring down at the Mets pole in your hands. You tested your grip and smirked. You liked weapons. The next villain that ran up on you with their quirk, you used the metal pole to jab them in the face with it. And when they covered their face in pain, you swiftly knocked them off their feet and stomped on their face. Being precise with each aim, you used the metal pole to fracture and injure the villains. Hitting them in the face, hitting them in the legs and arms, and other places. At one point, you broke one of their spines and knocked one of their teeth out. It was brutal and your classmates struggled to watch. Both amazed and disturbed. When 𝗖𝗎𝗄𝒂 gave you the signal, you ran over and slid on the dirt to make it in quick time. Turns out, what 𝗖𝗎𝗄𝒂 made was a thick sheet that could handle 𝗵𝗲𝒄𝒂𝒄𝒌's quirk and not hurt them. A sheet? A villain questioned when seeing the large blanket the 3 girls were under. He looked smug. Is it supposed to be a shield? It's an insulation sheet 100 millimeters thick. 𝗖𝗎𝗄𝒂 answered the villain's questions with a sly grin before looking at her classmate. 𝗵𝗲𝒄𝒂𝒄𝒌. I see. 𝗵𝗲𝒄𝒂𝒄𝒃 smirked, powering up his quirk so that electricity started flowing around him. In that case, I can be really strong. He rounded up electricity in his hands and floated on the ground. The action successfully electrifying all of the villains. 𝗖𝗎𝗄𝒂𝒄 lifted the sheet and glanced at the unconscious bodies of the villains on the ground. Now then, I am worried about the others. Our class can hold their own, but these are real villains and you're 15-year-olds turning 16. You replied, leaving out the fact that you were actually a year older and turning 17. Eventually, the villains will take advantage of the fact that we're still heroes in training, first years at that. You're right. 𝗎𝗫 agreed, which you turned to. We should get to the others and try to make an escape. It's better to leave rather than stay and fight when we're inexperienced. That's a good idea. 𝗖𝗎𝗄𝒂𝒄 nodded before she looked over to you with a small smile. Your intelligence and combat skills are very admirable, Patterson. Thank you. You replied with a small smile of your own. Call me 𝑰/N. I prefer my first name. You glanced down at her attire before turning around and walking away. Make jacket or something. You're on display right now. 𝗖𝗎𝗄𝒂𝒄 looked down to see her chest was exposed. Oh dear. Her eyes widened at the sight, and she quickly made herself a shirt. Thank you, 𝑰/N. And call me Momo. I prefer my first name as well. You're welcome, Momo. There was a sudden loud noise from the entrance of the USJ that startled the group. Turning their heads, they saw a mist of smoke and the number 1 hero, All Might, emerge from it. All Might grabbed Aizawa, muttering something quietly to the unconscious and badly beaten man before setting him. Then he grabbed Mineta, Tsu, Izuku, and set them near the teacher. Everyone, go to the entrance. I'm leaving Aizawa to you. He's unconscious. Hurry. Upon seeing your freckled best friend, you wasted no time running to him. While your other classmates were heading towards the entrance, you headed to him with quick speed. It didn't take long before you finally reached him. 𝑰/N. Izuku shouted your name out of relief when he saw you running, no wounds in sight. When you were close, he immediately pulled you into a tight hug. He had been worried for your safety since you both got separated. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm okay, I'm not hurt. You answered and leaned back from the hug to look at him. His hands were still holding yours and you scanned for any wounds. Are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. He exhaled and pulled you back into a hug, finding comfort in knowing you unhurt and with him again. You weren't gone long, but the dangerous villains surrounding the area, and with him not knowing where you were, he felt fear. 𝗵𝗏𝗧 and 𝗧𝗵𝗵 looked between the two of you, watching your interaction with a surprised look. This was the first time they had seen you display emotion, and they had seen Izuku so comfortable and tactile. We should go. You spoke firmly, briefly looking from Izuku to 𝗧𝗵𝗵 and 𝗵𝗏𝗧. Your eyes glanced back to see All Might fighting, and then your unconscious homeroom teacher. I'll carry Dash, I got him. Izuku spoke quickly, grabbing the teacher and holding him on his back. He gave you a smile, and you raised your brows before turning and heading towards the entrance. The three of them followed behind you. There was a light conversation between 𝗧𝗵 and Izuku about the situation all of you were in, which you didn't listen to. Your mind was mostly thinking of the fight behind you with All Might and your unconscious teacher. All of a sudden, there was a large gust of wind from the fight behind you. Quickly, the three of you stopped walking and turned around to see All Might, and he appeared to be struggling. And that's when Izuku took off to help the man. A sigh moved past your lips. Of course he would jump headfirst into trouble without a care in the world for if he got injured or not. He's insane, he has to be. He's mentally unstable and insane. You were sure of it. Exhaling, you turnips to the shorter girl with green hair. 𝗬𝗏, can you take 𝗧𝗏 for me? Sure, Ribbit. The short girl, 𝗬𝗏, nodded her head and grabbed your homeroom teacher and placed him on her back. She was much stronger than you originally thought. Thank you. Almost immediately, you took off running after your reckless best friend. This was a pattern that has followed you throughout the years of your friendship. Izuku would find himself in trouble and you would quickly follow after to save him. Oddly enough, that was how you worked. But what if the balance shifted? After a minute of running, you quickly caught up to Izuku, but your heart nearly jumped out of your chest at what you saw. A purple warping portal appeared in front of Izuku when he reached his hand out to save All Might. You ran quicker and used your body to push him, and yourself, out of the way. The two of you tumbled on the floor and rolled on the dirt, then you heard the sound of an explosion go off. So, you're trying to die on me? 𝗵𝗃𝗂 questioned, his eyes narrowing as he looked at you. Maybe you really shouldn't be a hero. Doesn't look too healthy. Don't piss me off, cat. You pushed yourself up with your hands, looking down at Izuku with a straight face. You waved off 𝗵𝗃𝗂 and he rolled his eyes before leaving when he spotted another villain. What the hell was that? You spoke with a sharp tone and stared piercingly down at him, who laid blushing and flustered under you. He took in deep breaths, and you leaned back on the heels of your feet. 𝑰/𝗏, that wasn't careful, that was reckless. You could have gotten hurt, or worse. You stood to your feet, trying to calm your frustration that stemmed from your worry. You promised. You crossed your arms to your chest and sighed. Izuku frowned but didn't speak. He knew you'd rather silence than an excuse, so he stayed silent. Suddenly, you turned to see a large scientific creature called 𝗏𝗵𝗏 being frozen to death with ice, and the creature had All Might in his hand. You already knew who it was, and when you turned, it was confirmed. Shoto Todoroki, two-toned hair and two different ice, like his quirk, fire and ice. All I heard was that you came to kill All Might. Todoroki said as he froze the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 that had a grasp on All Might, which allowed the number one hero to escape the creature's grasp. Then, Kirishima appeared and attempted to land an attack on Tamura Shigaraki. Unfortunately for him, he missed and the villain took that as an opportunity to jump out of the way and avoid the attack. 𝗵𝗏𝗏. I didn't get to show off in front of Patterson. It's 𝑰/𝑛, don't call her Patterson. 𝗵𝗃𝗂 corrected, which earned him a surprised look from the redhead. He never calls anyone by their first name. But 𝗵𝗃𝗂 completely ignored the look, and instead smirked. And stop being so stuck up, you foggy nobody. The symbol of peace cannot be killed by the likes of you. Todoroki said coldly and glares pointedly at the villains. He had a lot of guts, there wasn't an ounce of fear in him. And if there was, nobody would know. 𝗂𝗄𝗎, our exit and entrance has been overcome. Shigaraki informed his accomplice, or whatever 𝗂𝗄𝗎 is to him. We're in a pinch. You careless bstrd. You're just what I thought you'd be. 𝗵𝗃𝗂 smirked as he stared at 𝗂𝗎𝗎, who he was holding down. Only certain parts of you can turn into a misty warp gate. The fog gate covered your actual body, right? Back then. If you were completely made of mist and physical attacks couldn't touch you, then you wouldn't have said, that was close. As annoying and aggravating as Bakugo was, you could acknowledge that he was very intelligent and observant. You glanced over to Shigaraki and narrowed your eyes at the man. He had taken most of your attention, not just because he was the clear unfit leader, but he had been watching you the whole time. Kurogiri was opting to move whatever he referred to as a body, but Bakugo made explosions in his hands. Don't move. If I feel like you're moving suspiciously, then I'll blow you up. Cold sweat dripped from Kirishima's forehead and looked at the blonde with a nervous and disturbed expression. His behavior isn't very hero-like. There was a few unheard words that flew from Shigaraki to his personal Nomu, and in an instant, the disgustingly nasty creature began to regenerate in the most repulsive-looking way. Even though his body is broken, he's still moving. Izuku stared at the Nomu's regeneration in disbelief and distraught. It was very disturbing. What? All Might voiced his question in a whisper, showcasing his visible confusion towards the quirks of the creature. His quirk wasn't shock absorption. I didn't say that was all he had. This is his super regeneration. Nomu has been modified to take you at 100%. He's a super efficient human sandbag. Shigaraki spoke smugly and gloated while explaining his creation's power. A clear sign he was an unfit leader, at least in this moment. First, we need to get our gate back. Without hesitation, the Nomu charged at Bakugo on Shigaraki's command. When you saw this, you quickly ran towards him, until smoke appeared with a powerful gust of wind from an unseen attack. Once the smoke cleared and the wind settled down, the group of teenage boys saw that Bakugo was no longer in the same area they saw him in moments before. Now, he was sitting beside the other three boys, but what really caught their attention was your lack of presence. Kakin, you dodged it. Midoriya's eyes widened in surprise when he saw the blonde was standing there unarmed. His attention quickly left him though, and shifted when he quickly realized you were not there. Where's 𝑰/N? Did you see her? Did she save herself? Did she get hurt? His heartbeat sped up in his chest as he looked around for you in fear. Shut up, 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Bakugo scowled at the boys admiring, in order to hide his surprise. I didn't see anything. His eyes trailed around, in search for you as he also noticed your lack of presence. Where is 𝑰/N? Kirishima noticed you were not there, as did everyone else. He was surprised to see the panicked and frantic expression on Midoriya's face, even more so when he noticed Todoroki subtly searched for you too. Do you not know how to hold back? All Might questioned the villain, Tamura Shigaraki. He was referring to the Nomu using its full power to attack a child, well, teenagers. It was to rescue my companions. I had no choice. Earlier. Shigaraki pointed towards Midoriya, who furrowed his brows. Plain-looking one. He was about to punch me with everything he had, you know. Violence for the sake of others makes it admirable. Isn't that right, hero? You know what, All Might? I'm angry. The villain, Shigaraki, continued as he held out one of Corp's hand-covered arms. I'm angry at this world that categorizes the same violent acts as heroic and villainous, deciding what's good and bad. Symbol of peace. You're just a device to repress violence. Violence only breeds violence. The world will know this once we kill you. That's preposterous. All Might said with a tone that showed his bitterness towards the man. The eyes of white-collar criminals like you burn silently. You just want to enjoy yourself, don't you, you liar? Todoroki quickly narrowed his already cold eyes at the group of remaining villains. It's 3 against 5. The fog's weakness has already been exposed. Midoriya had a firm look, agreeing with Todoroki. His stare was narrowed and frustrated, his heart was racing with fear. Were you? Did they take you? These guys are crazy, but if we back up All Might dash, Kirishima hardened his hands and narrowed his eyes with determination. We can push back. Run away. All Might ordered the teenagers. He didn't want them to involve themselves because not only were the children, they were first years with only 2 weeks of hero training. You would have been in trouble if I hadn't done something earlier, right? Todoroki reminded the pro hero, trying to make a point. It wasn't that good of a point since he was still a young, inexperienced child trying to fight murders, but it was his only point. All Might felt slightly offended that Todoroki thought he needed his help. That was a different story, young Todoroki. Thanks. But it's fine. Just watch as a pro hero gives it everything he's got. Does that include me? The whoop of your voice revealed your location from behind the large number 1 hero. You walked to the side, trying to appear strong, but you felt quite weak. I think my help was needed. Your hand glowed purple from where it was against his large waist. All Might let out a small laugh as he glanced down at the young woman, yourself, beside him. That's right. How could I be so careless? Well, I hope that's enough for you. You whispered and removed your hand from his body, deactivating your quirk. You could no longer supply him energy, you were growing too weak. That's about as much as I can give in the moment. Apologies. No need to apologize. All Might spoke quietly to you, but kept his gaze firm on the villain distanced away. You're already doing more than needed. I give you my gratitude, and I will make sure to not let your kind gesture be in vain. You inhaled a heavy breath and nodded your head. You felt quite weak. Maybe you should sit down for a minute. Just a minute. You were quite tired and your eyes felt droopy. A seat sounded nice. Just for a few minutes. Just as your body was about to fall, you felt arms around your body, preventing said action. You didn't need to look up to know who was holding you. You could tell by his touch, his scent, and the worried whisper of your name from his lips to your ear. He held shoulders and legs, and you weakly wrapped your arms around his neck and laid your head against him while he carried you over. You closed your eyes for a moment and reopened them to see the other 3 boys walking over. Hey, are you okay? Kirishima immediately asked as he approached you. His eyes glanced at Izuku for a second before returning back to you. Were you using your quirk? I'm okay, just tired. You spoke in a slower tone, leaning a little more into Izuku, who you noticed wasn't saying anything, just holding you tightly. I gave All Might some of my energy. I tried to help Cat. You need to stop protecting me. Bakugo narrowed his eyes and spoke in a low tone. He watched your breathless form, you looked exhausted. Not yet. You tried your best to give a smile, your eyes closing once again. You felt Izuku's grip on you tighten, but he still said nothing. You wondered what he was thinking. Concern, most likely. Nomu, Kurogiri. Get him. Shigaraki ordered both his comrade and monster creation he named Nomu. I'll deal with the children. It's true that I barely had a minute left. My powers have been declining faster than I expected. All Might thought to himself as he stared at his hand and clenched it tightly. Despite you having the ability to transfer him energy, he didn't want to rely on you since you are still a teenager. Let's finish this and go home. Shigaraki spoke with a bore in his tone before chanting at the 5 teenagers. With quick speed, All Might ran to the Nomu and threw a fast punch that collided with the Nomu's first. This created a strong gust of wind by impact, which blowed Shigaraki back a bit. DMN. Hey, you talked about his shock absorption yourself, didn't you? Shigaraki recalled a moment ago as he stabilized himself on the ground. Yes, I did. All Might answered just as he and Nomu fought head-on. The gust of wind from the large fight was powerful. Izuku settled down to the ground and held you in his arms, protecting you from the strong wind. All of the teenage boys watched with amazement. A head-on fistfight. Wow! The battle was very one-sided, with the number 1 hero overpower the creatures. All Might ruthlessly sent attack after attack, overwhelming the Nomu as to stop it from being able to regenerate. In order to do this, not only was his punches heavy and full of strength, but he was moving at such a speed that it was almost inhuman. Is this a comic book or something? It's like he nullified the shock absorption. His brute strength is crazy. Kirishima muttered, staring at the number 1 hero with pure shock and astonishment. What insane power! Does this mean he rushed at him so fast that it could regenerate? Bakugo mumbled to himself. He could only watch with a look of sheer disbelief at seeing the number 1 hero's raw power in person. But you whispered quietly in the faintest of tones as you continued to lean on Izuku for support. You could admit, All Might was the strongest man you've ever seen. You could feel Izuku's tight grip slightly loosen up once the battle came to an end. He still held you close. I really have gotten weaker. In my prime, 5 hits would have been enough. But it took more than 300. 𝗏𝗏 said with tired words, reflecting on his condition as he turned to the 2 villains left. Now villains. I'm sure we'd all like to end this as soon as possible. Weaker? No way. We've been completely overwhelmed. I can't believe he did that to 𝗵𝗏𝗄. Did he use a chest? Shigaraki refused to believe what the one-sided battle was real. He was not aware of the power 𝗏𝗏 truly possessed until now. He wouldn't accept his defeat, let alone how easy it could have been compared to now. What's wrong? You're not coming. You said you'd clear this or something, right? 𝗏𝗏 narrowed his eyes at Shigaraki, feeling a distaste for the villain. Come get me if you can. Kirishima spoke up to the group about how he thought they all should go back to the rest of the class at the entrance. You ignored his suggestion and stared at 𝗏𝗏 with a glimmer of hope in your eyes. Your eyes squinted a bit when you noticed the steam around him. You let your mind wander for a moment until you realized that it was coming from him. 𝗏𝗏 was running out of time. In that moment, you wished you had given him more energy. He needs it more than you. With haste, Shigaraki and Kurojirai ran towards 𝗏𝗏 with the plan to attack. Without much of a thought, Izuku let you go, jumped high and readied his hand to punch Kurojirai in his known weak point. As this was happening, Shigaraki raised his own hand through the warp, ready to use his quirk and disintegrate him. Realizing this, you raised your hand and used your quirk to manipulate the energy in Izuku's body, throwing his body out of the way before he could get hurt. You were going to scold him for that later. Without warning, there was a loud sound of gunfire going off several times. Heads turned, everyone could see it was 𝗏𝗏𝗏 shooting Shigaraki without missing a bullet. This revealed that the teacher pro heroes at UA, along with the animal principal, had arrived to the scene. It was Iida who escaped and contacted the school for help. Shigaraki stared shamelessly at you, as he secretly had been doing the whole time. He watched you close your eyes, and streaks of purple appear throughout your skin for a brief second. So fast, if one wasn't paying attention, they would have missed it. Everyone else did, maybe you did too. But he didn't. A strong one she is. Shigaraki commented as he held his bleeding arm, while Kurojirai used his quirk to shield him. Too bad she's not that skilled with her quirk. I agree. She could be quite powerful. And potentially dangerous in the future. Kurogirl spoke in a gentle but firm tone, something that was usual for him. Shall I dispose of her now? No. Shigaraki spoke quick and firm, watching you fall unconscious. He turned around and walked through the portal, his eyes sent attack. That's her, 𝑰/N. No one will lay a finger on her. Sir. //. Questions may arise, but hold them. This is only the beginning, trust me, it gets crazier from here. On the bright side though, Izuku does not play about OC's well-being. OSHU in Japan, UA High. Second person, since the USJ attack planned by a newly formed organization of villains. It took you some time, but after a few days, you were feeling refreshed again. Izuku, as always, was your rock through it all. He would constantly go over to your house as always, just to take care of you. You had never felt so exhausted before, so you were very grateful for him. Currently, you were back in school on an early morning. You had your head lowered on top of your folded arms resting on the desk. As usual, you wore your headphones and listened to music while you waited for class to begin. There was chatter all around you from the voices of your classmates, but you ignored them all. Today, you were in a pretty good mood, although it may not look like it, but you really are. And that was because Izuku had bought you your favorite chocolate to help you feel better. Not because of the attack, but because you were on your PRD. You weren't sure if you mentioned to him or not, because you were genuinely surprised when he gave it to you as a gesture. You don't remember doing so, but maybe you did. Class finally started, and you were alerted this by the sound of your homeroom teacher greeting his students. When you looked up, you saw the man covered in bandages as he walked in the classroom. You put your phone and headphones up and straightened your posture. The UA Sports Festival is drawing near, Aizawa announced to the class. However, You were still confused on why he was bandaged from head to toe. Was he so terribly injured? Should he even be here if it's so bad? Is it okay to have a sports festival so soon after the villains snuck inside? Jiro questioned, and you silently agreed to it being absurd, because it definitely was. Mashireo Ojiro, the boy with short blonde hair and a quirk that gave him a thick and strong tail, added on to Jiro's worry. What if they attack us again or something? Apparently, they think of it as UA showing that our crisis management system is solid as a rock by holding the event. Security will also be strengthened to 5 times that of previous years. Aizawa answered the question in his usual monotone voice. Above all, our sports festival is a huge chance. It's not an event to be cancelled because of a few villains. But that's a good reason, isn't it? It's just a festival of sport. Mineta asked in a scared tone. The boy with the fight of a 6-year-old, personality of a predator, the hormones of a teenager, the impulse control of a toddler, and quirk that allows him to throw a bunch of sticky ball at people. The green-eyed boy with a head full of curls, Izuku, turned and gave the little boy a surprised look. Mineta, you've never seen the UA Sports Festival. Of course I have. Mineta quickly retaliated. You narrowed your eyes at him before pushing your glasses up the bridge of your nose and turning your head towards the window to stare out of it. He watched you with a blush, his mind filled with disgusting thoughts. Midoriya saw the little boy stare at you, and his face reflected a blank look. He wondered if Mineta thought he had a chance with you because from the looks of it he seems to. For some reason, Mineta seemed to like you most of all the girls. How delusional. Midoriya exhaled and turned his attention back to the homeroom teacher. Aizawa stopped the teasing from going any further. Our sports festival is one of Japan's biggest events. In the past, the Olympics were called a festival of sports, and the whole country was crazy about them. As you know, with reductions in scale and population, they're now a shell of their former glory. And now, for Japan, what has taken the place of those Olympics is the UA Sports Festival. Of course, all the top heroes around the country will be watching. Momo stated while she clenched her fists tightly with a surge of determination. For scouting purposes. If you do well enough, you might end up being scouted out by one of the top heroes, who might take you in as a sidekick until you go independent. You added, ignoring the hungry look you were. Unfortunately receiving from Mineta. You used your quirk to turn his head, it was getting bothersome. Of course, joining a famous hero agency will get you more experience and popularity. Time is limited. If you expect to go pro, then the path to your future will open up at this event. Aizawa firmly told his class. 1 chance a year, a total of just 3 chances. No aspiring heroes can afford to miss this event. If you understand that, then don't slack off on your preparations. Sir. Homeroom dismissed. The homeroom teacher started heading for the door, but you got up from your seat. Mr. Aizawa. You called for the man, causing him to stop and turn towards you. May I please speak to you privately? The teacher stared at you for a moment before turning around and walking out of the door, and you quickly followed. Once the door closed, who gestured you to speak? Yes, Patterson. I have an appointment the same day as the sports festival. You spoke, your gaze drifted and you played with the bottom of your skirt. Therapy. You added quietly, the festival was after school and you had therapy that day after school. Will I be able to still attend? I may not be able to make it to the very end, and I may not get scouted by pros, but I still want to participate. If you're fine with having less time, that can be arranged. You don't have to make it to the end to get scouted, there can only be one winner. You need to prove yourself. When Aizawa said this, a smile appeared on your lips as you returned your gaze to him. Focus on training. I expect nothing less than excellence from you, Patterson. Yes, sir. OSHU training for the sports festival had began for the class, as well as the other first-year classes in the school. But after the USJ attack with villains that happened weeks prior, Class A were training their hardest, not just to prove themselves, but also to protect themselves. The attack showed just how long of a way they had, and they wanted to shorten that distance. After training for weeks, today you decided to take a break and just enjoy yourself. After working out and doing martial arts for years, You understood that it was crucial to take breaks and relax. And today was one of those days where you were going to just enjoy life. And that's how you found yourself at the beach. Not just any beach, but the one you trained on with Izuku a year before getting into UA. Technically 10 months, but an extra 2 when waiting for your acceptance, and the following weeks before actually attending. Anyway, you were at the beach. Like some others, you enjoy watching sunsets and sunrises, even taking pictures on occasion. It was such an appealing and peaceful time for you, and it always calmed you. Usually it was something you enjoyed alone, but today you decided otherwise. Today, you brought Izuku with you. He had an irritable habit of pushing himself way too hard and struggled to take breaks every now and then. You admired how passionate he was about achieving his goals, but you hated how much he overworked himself. So, you forced him to join you out for today. It didn't really take much effort. When you asked him at first, he denied it and made the excuse of wanting to train more. When you demanded it, he agreed without hesitation. Quite easy. Hand in hand, the two of you walked down the stairs till you stepped in the sand. Izuku held a basket in his other hand and you held a bag in your other. Together, you walked through the sand on the beach till you found a good spot. It was dark out and very early. From your bag, you grabbed blankets and set them down with the help of Izuku. Once it was to your liking, you both sat on top of it and Izuku opened the picnic basket full of snacks. You grabbed your speaker from your bag and played some music. It was very peaceful. So, how do you like school so far? You asked, pressing your legs and knees together, and tilting them to the side as you leaned more on your hip and one arm. You wore a yellow maxi bodycon dress with gold sandals and your natural hair done up in a high afro puff wrapped around in a headscarf. What's new? A small smile appeared on his face, looking through the basket. I think you pretty much know everything, since you know. You're in my class. He said it in a sassy tone, and you pushed his shoulder. I'm serious, you know everything. All right then, tell me something. Your gaze briefly glanced at his hand, seeing him hand you a bottle of water. You took it and set it down. Doesn't have to be smart or important, just tell me something. I don't see you as much as I used to. So, I want to hear you. He paused and looked you in your eyes. It was true, you were used to talking to him all the time, every single day. But with the new school, opportunities, and friends, you see him less because you have to share him more. You still see and talk to him a lot, just not as much as you used to. You weren't complaining, just missing when it was just the two of you against the world. He took a breath and grabbed a water bottle for himself. You know how I love to work out, especially cardio because of the little runner's high I get from time to time. You nodded your head. There's times when I feel like me and cardio are incompatible. Usually when I go running or when I do some high-intensity cardio, I just 𝗧𝗏𝒂𝒐 on the dissociation and I'll see the world when I land. That made you smile and give a short, quiet laugh but kept listening. Then other times I cannot focus. And every other second is a second to collect myself. Yesterday, I was in the gym doing a little post-workout run, and this song came on in my headphones. Then at one point in the song the beat started getting really good, dare I say phenomenal. All I heard was a boots and a cats and a boots and a cats and a boots and a cats. His weak attempt to beatbox in English made you laugh, and he smiled like it was his goal. So, I paused my music because I'm like, this tune is amazing. When did I add this to the arsenal? What's going on? But what caught me off guard is even after I stopped my music, the beat did not go off. I'm still hearing straight 808 what is going on. And it wasn't the gym playlist either, because my gym is not capable of such funk. I know this. I looked down on my shirt and my heart was crumping. It was literally feeling the rhythm. I cannot make that up. His sudden seriousness made you laugh once more. It was my heartbeat getting groovy the whole time. It was almost like clockwork. As soon as I realized that, my knees hit a factory reset and I almost hit the floor. Keep in mind, the entire time I was still on the treadmill. The treadmill almost swiped left on me. It was all crazy. A grinning smile appeared on your face and you reached in the basket to pull out some fruit. So what I'm hearing is, it's a good thing I made you take a break when I did, because you were 3 hopscotches away from being put on bed rest. And that's why you're important. You're always there when I need you. He smiled and grabbed one of the fruits you brought out. I need you always. I know that. Without me, who's gonna make sure you don't end up in an early grave? You asked with raised brows and grabbed another fruit to eat. I'm serious. If you don't calm it down, you won't have to worry about villains. Your enemy will be your reflection. It can be hard to stop sometimes. He admitted, and you figured that much by now. I really want to master this quirk soon and get better at using it. I don't want you worrying about me all the time, like at the USJ. I'm going to care about you regardless, Izuku. No amount of skill you'll ever possess will change that. I don't worry about you because I think you're weak, I worry about you because I love you. Your words made him freeze and stare at you surprised. You're my best friend, you're someone I care deeply about. And when you love someone, you worry about them every time they're away from you. Every time they're on their own. Every time they're in a dangerous situation, regardless of their strength. So as long as I care about you, as long as I love you, I'll always worry for you. There was a moment of silence. He continued to stare solemnly at you as the weight of your words soaked through his heart. He had listened to you speak, and when you were done, his mind raced rapidly to dwell deeper into each word you spoke. If your goal was to make his heart flutter, you succeeded much easier than you would ever realize. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, you gently turned his head to the side. He was confused by the action at first, until he saw what you were trying to show him. The sun was beginning to rise, and the sky was changing colors. So appealing. So peaceful. Can I tell you something I'm scared of? You spoke in a quiet voice, a slow leap above a whisper. By the time we graduate, can tell you. He turned to look at you once more, something he couldn't help himself doing. You were the centerpiece of his thoughts, the highlight of his attention. I fear this will be where we fall. You didn't add much detail or context to that statement. You left it for him to think, for him to wonder in a general sense. And he did. While he did, he boldly pulled you closer to him. When you were close, you leaned against him and the two of you quietly enjoyed the sunrise. A faint whisper. Then let's fall together. OSHU and a few days later, you were back in UA's gym, as it became a routine, in which you trained there with Bakugo or 𝗬𝗏𝗏. Only a couple days after it announced that the sports festival was in full swing, the brunette-haired girl approached you with the intention of training with you. You usually train with her on separate days that you train with Bakugo because of how different pace they are. But today, 𝗬𝗏𝗏 wanted to join the two of you. It was late morning when you all agreed to meet on a Saturday. Allowed by the school, other students were doing the same. So, when you all got there was some minutes of exercise and stretching before actually getting into training, which would be sparring. The three of you trained with different goals in mind. You had never used your quirk much growing up, so you were extremely inexperienced with it. Your main focus with training was getting better at controlling your quirk. Bakugo recognized that he depended on his quirk more than his actual skill. And there needed to be some level of balance, because there might be situations where he cannot use his quirk. In the long run, there will be battles where he needs his brain and good combat skills. As for 𝗬𝗏𝗏, she wanted to learn and practice martial arts and brush up on her combat skills in general. Like Bakugo, she didn't want to depend only on her quirk, especially since there will be many situations where she most likely won't need it. And growing up, she took a strong interest in the concept of strength as a whole. But she, herself, had never dared to attempt learning or building it for herself. She was always told in school that the heavy lifting was a man's job. So, when she saw strong women heroes showing off their strength, she admired it. And when she met you, learned bits and pieces of how you did martial arts almost your entire life, she couldn't help but feel inspired. Seeing you in action, she wished she had never let her fear of what others thought stop her. All right, we'll keep it simple. It's all in. If you go down, get back up. Got it? You told the two as you were all stretching your limbs to prepare for the training. Since 𝗬𝗏𝗏's never trained with us, and we're both rough and aggressive, she'll jump in after the first round. All right. Bakugo nodded his head with a quiet reply. He turned his head both sides to stretch his neck. Both of you are going to eat. You know, I love how with you, it's always getting critical, but it's never your thinking. That's crazy to me. You smirked at his irritated look while you sat on the mat and stretched your legs. Did you leave the left side of your brain at home? Or did you power it off? Do you even have a brain? Such a 16-year-old response. Congratulations, you leveled up from dumber to dumb. You said with a fake happy tone and gave a straight smile. Then you turned your attention to 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝒂, who watched the interaction anxiously. Ignore him. How do you feel? A bit nervous. She admitted. The two of you were very strong. There was a reason she didn't train with the two of you together before this. She wasn't delusional. She knew she wasn't on the same level as you two. It's okay. That's why you're watching us fight first before joining. We're just sparring. Don't worry, no one's going to judge you. You gave a friendly smile, but Bakugo cleared his throat, which had you rolled your eyes. I won't judge you, he will. And when he does, I'll make his body match his eyes. Enough with the small talk, let's fight. Bakugo interrupted, and you grinned at his irritation and frustration at your words. Sometimes you could be cocky, but only when you knew you could back it up. And you definitely could. All right. And that's how the training session began. It was unsurprising and expected that Bakugo was the first to strike. He used his quirk to push himself in front of you, where he could land the first blow, a kick. But you effortlessly dodged the kick by doing a backhand spring. 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝒂's eyes widened when she saw how quick Bakugo's movements were when he rushed at you, and your quick reaction to it. She was shocked to see your flexibility. Prior training, she had seen you stretch, but seeing you fight and love so swiftly was a shocker. Already, she saw a big difference in how you fight with her versus Bakugo, and she preferred this version. The red-eyed blonde smirked and used his other leg to kick your back as you did a handspring. 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝒂's eyes widened at the roughness of the attack and looked at you with concern. But she was shocked by the sight of you grinning. My back. You raised your eyebrows briefly when you asked, and reached behind to rub the area he kicked. Really, Ket? He used a lot of strength. Anybody else would call a timeout. I saw an opportunity, I took it. Bakugo stretched out his arm, loosening the muscles that tensed. Don't you dare lie and say you wouldn't do the same. You shrugged your shoulders, he was correct. The brunette exhaled the breath she didn't know she was holding. She was relieved you weren't okay. When she saw the amount of force used, she was sure it hurt. She couldn't help but admire your resilience and skills. Usually, you weren't one to attack first because you preferred to tire your opponent out. And this corresponded well with Bakugo because he loved attacking first to overwhelm his opponent. So, he attempted to punch you, but you grabbed his wrist, twisted it, and flung him on the ground on his back. The moment his back hit the matted floor, he felt the air leave his body shortly from the harsh impact, which was intended. He groaned and in a heavy breath. 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝒄. A smirk formed on your lips as you took this as an opportunity to do a quick axe kick. But the blonde saw this attack coming and reacted just as quick. He rolled over to dodge the attack, then jumped back on his feet. Bakugo tried to minimize his explosions for a close-range attack. You saw this and crossed your arms over each other to protect your face, successfully. 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝒂's eyes widened with disbelief with how little affected you seemed to be by the attack. Partially because Bakugo held back the explosion, and partially because you reflected it. After the explosion, you rushed at Bakugo with a roundhouse kick. The blonde forced your leg away and jabbed you in the face. While you were distracted, he used a small explosion to knock you off your feet and onto the matted floor. Him being the quick learner that he is, attempted to koi the axe kick. 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝒂 was surprised by the quickness and accuracy. You quickly swung your leg around and knocked him off his feet. But before you could pin him down, he rolled over and got to his feet. So you're copying me now. You raised your brows and took your time getting back to your feet, stretching your arms. You poor middle child. He was a fast learner, you could admit. He perfectly replicated your move after seeing it once. Although, you noticed he did practice a bit in the middle of the spar. Borrow. He said it like he was correcting you, and you rolled your eyes to his response. He simply grinned and used the bottom of his black tank top to wipe the sweat around his eyes. It was distracting. From there, 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝒂 watched as the both of you started fighting head-on. Your styles of fighting were very clearly different. You were more agile and swift while Bakugo was more bold and forceful. But you flashed well together. You were more skilled in combat and agility, having done several different types of martial arts for over 10 years. But Bakugo was better at using his quirk, and he did every now and then, so he wasn't at a disadvantage. It was an amazing soaring match that lasted almost 30 minutes, both of you refusing to lose. 𝗎𝗏𝒂 could help but stare astonished the entire time. The two of you were both great fighters, especially you. But after some time, it was finally coming to a close. Bakugo had used his quirk to know you back a distance. You were getting tired of him excessively using that move. And he noticed. If it bothers you so much, why don't you do something about it? He edged you on. Quiet. I'll just keep blowing you back. Quiet. I don't understand why you won't use your quirk. For someone to be so skilled, you look pathetic. Maybe you shouldn't be a hero. How can you be one when you refuse to reach any type of potential you might possess? How useless. The anger was evident in your hardened stare, your face becoming a void of emotion. This had Bakugo smirk and tug on the final string he needed. He sent an explosion at you, and as he wanted, your quirk mixed with your reflexes. You raised your hand, emitting a purple glow, and manipulate the energy in his body to force him back. His body slammed against the wall, and then you threw his body to crash against the matted floor. Bakugo breathed out, his back lying flat on the ground. He stared up at the ceiling, trying to catch the breath you stole from him. He was not expecting you to use so much force, or for it to hurt that much. I would say finally, but I'm feeling really regretful right now. Sorry you set me off. You fell to the ground beside him, sitting down and trying to catch your breath. Thanks, I guess. As much as it frustrated you, you understood what he was doing. He was trying to get you to use your quirk since you were suppressing it. He was feeling bitter after you practically tossed him around like he was a toy or something. You smiled and pressed your hand on his stomach, using your quirk to transfer some of your energy onto him. You did get a little rough. After a minute, you turned to 𝗎𝗏𝒂, who stared in pure disbelief to the intense training battle she had just witnessed. There was a feeling of panic growing inside her at the thought of having to take you both on. There was no way she was going to be able to keep up. Ready to join. // Genuinely, I'm surprised with how good the battle came out. I'm terrible at writing fights, but I love them so much. And I love Izuku's friendship with the OC, they're so caring towards each other. //OSHUNBBPSS. I'm trying my best. I really am. I'm trying. I see that. And I'm proud of you. Dizzy, @/Y/N Patterson, 17. Why are you so perfect? Why do you treat me like this? But @Izuku Midoriya, 16, /I love you. I treat you like I do because I love you. SSSSSS1S Swarnings. Cursing SSSSSSS. SSBYSSSS. Is/S. Y/N is S. SSS. S. S. SSS. MYHAY/NS. SS. Y/NIs. Speaking out loud, I don't want anything from you. I just want everything with you. Japan, UA. Second person, at night, midnight to be exact, and the day before the sports festival. Despite this, you stood in the UA school gym with Bakugo and 𝗎𝗏𝒂 for a final training session, mere hours before the event. Shockingly enough, it was 𝗎𝗏𝒂 who wanted to do one more training and you agreed. So here you three were, training. Quickly, Bakugo rushed at 𝗎𝗏𝒂 and attempted to kick her side. But she managed to block his kick by reflecting it with one of her own, successfully hitting his side. Then when she saw an opening, she balled her fist and used it to uppercut him in the jaw. DMN. Bakugo stumbled back and muttered, then he looked at her and smirked at her brute force. So, you're finally starting to pull your own DMN weight, huh? I've been learning from Y/N. 𝗎𝗏𝒂 replied breathlessly, glancing over to you. You watched on the sidelines with a straight face, eyes watching and analyzing their every move. It was true, you sort of took her under your wing. She wanted to learn from you specifically, and you didn't mind teaching. So, you trained together 2 to 3 times a week. All right. You and 𝗎𝗏𝒂 switched places and you stretched your arms. The festival is tomorrow, and I still want to get some rest before school. So, let's get this over with. Agreed. Bakugo used his explosions to push himself towards you with speed. Of course he's starting it off like that. You raised your leg and roundhouse kicked him in the face. Though, it did not connect because he crossed his arms over each other to protect his face, but the force still backed him up on impact. In the recent weeks, you've been working on combining your quirk with your reflexes. So, it was no longer something you needed to think about to do, it was an instinct. Changing your way of fighting was difficult, but it was achievable and worth it. So, when Bakugo went to attack you with his explosions, you used your quirk to stop the attack. By taking control of the energy in his body, and completely stopping him from doing the attack. Then you ran at him in that split second his control was returning, and you kicked harshly against the wall and watched him tumble to the floor. He uttered breathlessly, sitting up and rubbing his lower back. He looked at you with sharp eyes. And you said round face was the fast learner. When the hell did you learn to do that? I've been practicing. You replied, earning a scoff from him. You shrugged your shoulders and grabbed a water bottle. I'm trying to learn all I can do with this quirk. You gave a better answer, one he seemed to take better. Your eyes trailed over to the brunette, who was drinking her water. You okay? You make sure to check on her every now and then. Not for a particular reason, you just care. 𝗬𝗏 has been in deep thought about her training when you spoke. The sound of your voice directed at her brought her out of her head, and she turned it to you. Yeah, I'm okay. You hummed and walked over, sitting down beside her. What were you thinking about? If you don't mind me asking. Oh, it's nothing really. She was surprised by your care, and didn't want to waste your time. But you continued to stare silently at her, and it urged her to speak. I was thinking about the training we've done in the last month. I can tell I've gotten stronger, and that's thanks to you. I don't think I would be able to do what I do without you. There was a small moment of quiet that moved her nerves. You turned your head and looked straight with a nod, taking in a breath. You take some credit, you know. I can teach if you want to be taught. It's not me who made you stronger, it's you who chose to be. I helped, I suppose. But it was all you. With that, you brought the water bottle to your lips and added, "Don't sell yourself short." You stood up and walked over to grab your things. Good work today, 𝗬𝗏. The brunette-haired girl simply stared with widened eyes, shocked by your words. A smile formed on her lips and her cheeks became more prominent. She watched you head for the door, and shouted quickly before you went. Thank you. The night had passed. As soon as you got home, you took a nap until your alarm off. When you got up, you did your morning routine, ate breakfast, and walked to the private school with Izuku. The school day continued as normal, but it was evident that nobody cared about school and was waiting for the festival to start. And it did. As of currently, you stood in a holding room with all of your classmates, waiting to be called out into the ring. Beside you stood Mina, who you had grown the closest to out of all of your classmates. I wanted to wear my costume. Mina complained, looking down at the school's gym clothes she, along with the rest of the class, were told they had to wear for the event. We're going to be on TV. They could have at least let us look good for the cameras. Well, we're representing them, so makes sense they want us to wear the school's name. You responded with a shrug of your shoulders. You looked down at the watch on your wrist to check the time. And we're just starting off. The more we grow, the more our hero costumes are going to change. So, it actually benefits us to wear the uniform instead of something we'll probably change 3 times this year. I guess that makes sense. Still, I would have preferred to at least wear my own workout clothes. Mina sighed and looked around the room. Her eyes caught sight of 𝗬𝗏 and Izuku, noticing the way the brunette smiled brightly as she spoke to him. The brown girl budged you to get your attention. They're getting kind of close, aren't they? I suppose. You glanced at the two and shrugged your shoulders. They met months before school started, at the exam. And she did vouch for him to get in the school. Technically, it was mainly you who did the speaking and convincing, but she played a part. So, naturally they get close. Stop being so rational and logical. Mina nudged you again, and you rolled your eyes with a smile. Seriously though, you trained with her these past few weeks, right? Did she ever mention anything crush, maybe? Or something close to? No, she was pretty focused on training to my knowledge. You used your phone as a mirror to make sure there was no curls out of place in your slick back bun. I doubt she would, honestly. We barely know each other, so she probably wouldn't trust men enough to mention something so personal. Oh, don't be so nonchalant. Mina put her hands on your shoulders and shook you, which had your eyes sharpen as you glanced at her. 𝗬𝗏𝒂𝒃 very clearly admires you, and definitely considers you a friend. Why else would she choose you to train her, and only you? You inspire her, so she'll trust you. It sounds like you want me to manipulate her. You raised your brows briefly and shook your head, shaking her hands off you. I'm not going to ask her about her love life, I don't care. If she wants to tell me, I'll listen. But otherwise, that's it. Come on. A grin showed on Mina's face and you rolled your eyes. Aren't you at least a little bit curious if she has a crush? Especially if it's on your best friend. No, not really. I only care about what affects me, and that doesn't. That was partially the truth. You have a lot of empathy, so you care about a lot of things, whether it affects you or not. But mostly if it affects you. But if you care so much, you can ask her yourself. Maybe I should. Mina finally settled down, realizing that she was being too pushy and making you uncomfortable. Not yet. It's too early to tell, she probably doesn't feel enough to realize it. She paused and gave you a curious look. Do you think he likes her? That made you freeze, and your gaze turned to the two smiling while they talked, specifically the nervous look on Izuku's face. I'm not sure. You trailed off, furrowing your brows. But when you realized your stare, you quickly retraced it. At least, I don't think so. He would have said something and he hasn't. Yeah, but he's a guy and guys can't exactly express their feelings well verbally, especially if they have a crush. She started appealing, unaware of the faltered look on your face. It was true. What she was saying was true, you just didn't want to believe it. Midoriya seems private, not just shy, he seems like he genuinely keeps things to himself because he wants to. So, I think he would also keep his crush to himself. Noticing the deflected look on your face, she quickly added on. But you're his best friend, so I'm sure he'd you. You nodded your head and raised your brows briefly, pretending like you were unaffected. You glanced at Izuku, watching him speak to the brunette before looking away. Would he tell you if he had feelings for someone? It was true, Izuku was naturally a private person. No one knew what he didn't say. He was like you in that sense. So you had to ask yourself, would you tell him if you had feelings for someone? Depends. The sudden slam of the door opening grabbed the attention of the first-year Class A. It pulled you from your thoughts and had you turn your head to see Ida. Everyone, are you ready? We will be entering soon. That was a relief. You really wanted to get started, knowing you won't be there till the very end. You had a therapy appointment later today, so you really wanted to do as much as you could before then. That, and your mother was here in person to watch to show her support, and you wanted to make her proud. Mina tapped your shoulder and pointed somewhere, and when you turned, you saw Todoroki approach your best friend. Midoriya. He said his name in a direct and firm tone, grabbing not only the name he called's attention, but the rest of his classmates as well. Todoroki. Midoriya said his name the same was his face looked visibly confused. What is it? He wondered from the tone the boy said his name in, and the eyes on them. Looking at things objectively, I think I'm stronger than you. Todoroki worded it as if that was a scientific fact with a bold tone and cold stare. But All Might has his eyes on you, doesn't he? I'm not trying to pry about that. But I'm going to beat you. Is the best in the class declaring war. Kaminari grinned and quietly instigated, with Zero at his side, both staring at the two like a fight was about to go down. It wouldn't, you would make sure of that. Opposite from him, Kirishima got up from his seat. Kirishima called for their attention and walked over to the two, placing a friendly hand on Todoroki's shoulder. Why are you picking a fight all of a sudden? Not now, we're about to start. Hastily, Todoroki swiped Kirishima's hand off his shoulder while maintaining his stare at Midoriya. We're not here to play at being friends. So, what does it matter? He planned to walk off but was stopped by Midoriya's voice. Todoroki, I don't know what you're thinking when you say you'll beat me. But of course, you're better than me. I think you're more capable than most people. Looking at it objectively. Midoriya talked lowly with his head down, clenching his fist. Midoriya, you probably shouldn't talk so negatively. Kirishima looked at him with a nervous smile in a feeble attempt to lighten the mood. But everyone, the students from the other courses, are aiming to become a great hero too. I can't afford to fall behind. Midoriya stared at Todoroki with clear determination burning through his eyes. I'll be going for it with everything I have too. Todoroki silently stared at Midoriya before his eyes shifted to the stare that burned holes in his body. Yours. His eyes stared back at you. He noticed that you had a very different look in your eyes than usual. Curiously, he held your eye contact, seeing as it was the first time you acknowledged him. But once you saw he was purposely holding eye contact with you, your eyes got smaller as you narrowed them at him. His eyes withdrew from you just as Midoriya noticed the stare and turned to define where it was angled at. Unfortunately for him, you looked away just as Todoroki did, going back to looking at the time on your watch. Walking out of the room, you were on his mind. You seem more complex and mysterious than he originally thought. He wondered what that state meant, what you were feeling, what you were thinking. Did his declaration to Midoriya anger you? Was that what evoked your hostility for him? 𝗂𝗍𝗂𝗵𝗃. Pro hero and UA teacher, 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝒃, yelled into the microphone from where he sat in the commentary booth. Pay attention, audience. Swarm, mass media. This year's high school rodeo of adolescence that you all love, the UA Sports Festival, is about to begin. Everybody, are you ready? It's time for the students to enter the first-year stage. At the announcement, the large and wild crowd sitting in the stadium started chanting and cheering as fireworks shot off. Apparently, that was the cue for all of the first years, in all majors, to walk onto the large field, where the crowd cheered louder. The UA Sports Festival. 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝒃 yelled and watched the crowd cheered for the students. The huge battle where fledgling heroes sharpen their swords once a year. Anyways, these are the guys, right? The miraculous new stars who overcame enemy attack with their heads of steel. Hero course, Class 1A, right? As 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝒃 talked to the crowd about the festival, you looked over to Izuku. He was talking to Uraraka and Iida, who you noticed had become their own little group. Your gaze dropped to the ground and you took in a deep breath and exhaled. You were not sure what you were feeling, perhaps because of how overwhelming it was at the moment. But it was negative, clearly. All of the first years walked over to where a nicely sized stage was set up. Standing on top with a microphone was the R-rated pro hero, Midnight, who was for some reason a UA teacher as well, despite being a R-rated hero. Representing the students of Class 1A is Katsuki Bakugo. Immediately, you let out a deep sigh, wondering why they thought it was a good idea for him of all people to speak. You watched the blonde walk up the stage with his hands shoved in the pockets of his gym briefs. I pledge. Bakugo started, his voice silencing the crowd who wanted to hear what he was going to say. That I will be the number one. Like clockwork, most of all the first years from other classes and majors yelled at him with anger. Class A was tense, some irritated at him for making 𝗔𝗍𝗔s with other classes. Bakugo, however, did not care about the uproar his declaration caused. He made his mark in the school, being either disliked or admired. Now, let's get started right away. The first game is what you'd call a qualifier. Every year, many drink their tears here. Now, here is the fateful first game. A large flat-screen TV lowered from the ceiling to show the game, like a raffle. All 11 classes will participate in this class. Full participation. The course will be the outer circumference of this stadium, about 4 kilometers. Midnight projected her voice into the microphone and raised her hand up. Our school's selling point is freedom. As long as you on the course, it doesn't what you do. Now, take your places everyone. The students from all 11 first-year classes quickly got to the start-up for the game. The start-up was in front of a giant red door, and they all waited for the game to begin. And on Midnight's word, it did. The students from all 11 first-year classes walked over to the start-up for the game. 𝗏𝒏𝗏 was really just them standing in front of a giant red door as they waited for the game to start. Speaking of start, hastily, all of the first years took off running through the obstacle course as fast as their teenage legs could take them, which for the lot of them outside of the hero course was not very fast. All of a sudden, as the students ran down the path, it froze up. This caused a good portion of people to either be stuck in the ice or struggle gliding across and slipping. The work obviously done by Todoroki, who slid across it with no difficulty. When this happened, you weren't on the ground. As soon as the game started, you hopped on top of the wall and ran on top of the flat surface. So, when Todoroki froze the ground, you were completely unaffected by it. Up ahead, you witnessed 𝗵𝗏𝗧 get knocked out by a giant robot, which when you saw they added robots to the course, you rolled your eyes and wondered why the school loved robots so much. Right as one attempt to attack you, you jumped on top of its hand. You ran up the arm until you were on its shoulder, and from there, you jumped from robot to robot. It should be noted that at one point, Todoroki had froze one of the robots. And it so happened, purposely, to be the one you were on. You only slid down the arm and jumped off the hand. When you landed on the ground, you made eye contact with him, and simply grinned before running. Todoroki quickly chased after you, having the intent to freeze that path again, which had harmless, not really bombs planted in the ground. But, without looking behind, you used your quirk to stop him from using his and threw him over. You ran faster, making sure you were far ahead, while Todoroki quickly chased after you. Then, you heard explosions behind you. 𝗵𝒃𝗲, don't declare war to the wrong person. You heard Bakugo shout at Todoroki, and then push himself with his explosions. He attempted to send an explosion at Todoroki, but he dodged. Really? I'm in front of both of you, and it's him you're worried about. You rolled your eyes at the situation and continued to run ahead of both of them, who seemed to be too busy fighting each other to realize. Then unexpectedly, you heard a loud noise that sounded like an explosion, but not Bakugo's. You didn't need to turn back to know what it was because you saw Izuku practically fly over your head and started running once his feet touched the ground. What the F? You stated with widened eyes, wondering where the hell he came from and how the hell he got in front of you. It was too late to do anything about it because you both were entering the tunnel that lead back to the stadium field. Izuku Midoriya is the winner, with 𝗏/N as a very close second. All that running knocked the wind out of your lungs, just for you to end up second. You bent forward and put your hands on your knees, taking multiple deep breaths as you breathed. The sun shining down on you didn't help the need to just walk out and go home. You looked up at the commentary booth and saw your mother sitting beside Aizawa. She got special permission to be there by Aizawa himself. She was there to let the man know when you would be leaving. Although, you were sure you could just leave, but you guessed that was precaution. 𝗵𝗏𝗧, your mother gave you a thumbs up and a handle to match it. You returned the smile before looking back at the ground, still trying to catch the breath that felt fleeting. You hoped you didn't have to do any more running for the rest of the games. I regret so much of my life's choices right now. You whispered to yourself in English, finally standing up straight again once your heart dialed down the beatboxing. You leaned your weight on one leg and placed your hand on your hip. I hope I'm not one of them. The sound of Izuku's voice behind you caught you off guard. You could barely react before his arms were wrapping around you from behind. The action made you freeze. Depends on how I feel. You managed to respond, gently tapping the hand around you. When he finally pulled back, you felt like you could breathe again. You turned around to see him smile, that quickly took the breath you finally got back. Congratulations, Izuku. You did well. One moment you're at the back, and the next I'm seeing you're back. So, good job. That sounds sarcastic. He narrowed his eyes at you playfully, and you shrugged your shoulders. No way, does it? You said in a more fake surprised way, and he smiled again, which encouraged you to do the same. Seriously though, I am very proud of you. You did really well. You placed hand on his chest, your eyes dripping there. And you are improving. Your energy levels are increasing. Every living thing has energy levels with a normal average, such as a quirkless person or a person with a quirk that doesn't change much about themselves. However, certain quirks require more energy, such as All Might or Bakugo, and that raises their energy levels. Energy levels are the amount energy living things hold on average. Those with high demanding quirks have a higher energy level, because they require more energy to be used with it, so their average is different from the rest of the world. Such as yourself, who is an energy powerhouse. The more you used your quirk, the higher your energy levels raise. Your average is nowhere near 𝗧𝗏 or 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝒂𝒃. That also meant you had to be careful when absorbing energy from certain people. Since your energy levels is much higher, if you were to take someone's energy whose average is way lower than your own, their energy would not be enough to keep you as functional as you're used to, because you don't have the same average as them. And if you took too much of theirs, you risk putting them in a coma, or killing them. Living things need energy to survive. It was vital. On the plus side, energy levels help you track your own progress and growth with your quirk, and it helps you determine how strong others are. So, you could tell that Izuku was growing stronger because his energy levels have increased since when he first got the quirk, but he still had a way to go compared to All Might. That's good. Izuku tried to ignore the flutter of his heart when you placed your hand on his chest. Some days it feels like I'm improving much, but I'm glad to know that isn't true. If not, I would be very upset. And we wouldn't want that, of course. You said with a grin and removed your hand from his chest. He grabbed your hand, making you freeze, and he rubbed his thumb over your knuckles as he stared at your hand. No, we wouldn't. Deku. 𝗧𝗏. The sound of 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝒃's voice cut the moment short, and you pulled your hand back. You felt like you could breathe again, but it was hard to with the way Izuku stared at you. His eyes remained on you, and you felt compelled to do the same, until the brunette was finally there. You two were amazing. Her voice made you look over to her, seeing the large, supporting smile on her face. First and second place is amazing. You both did so well. Thank you. You did well too. You replied with a small smile and then turned to Izuku. It was then that you saw his eyes remained on you, even while she spoke. You stared in his eye and looked away, and he finally did too. Thank you, 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝒃. This chapter was actually interesting to write. I thoroughly enjoyed it. That moment at the end was not originally supposed to be written, but I couldn't resist. It was too perfect. The tension was immaculate, and I do not regret it. OSHUN Japan, UA. Second person, finish line. They were given a few minutes to catch their breath before the next game would commence. It was not nearly a long enough breather before the next game had begun. Midnight's voice cut through everyone else's like a sharp sword and raised her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. The first game of the first year stage is finally over. Now take a look at the results. Midnight announced as the giant flat-screen TV showed the results of the game. 1. Class 1A, Izuku Midoriya 2. Class 1A, 𝗧𝗏 3. Class 1A, Shoto Todoroki 4. Class 1A, Katsuki Bakugo. It interested you to see that Todoroki ended up taking third place in the fight between him and Bakugo. When you ran through, you didn't care to look and see who was behind you because you were too busy trying to catch your breath from all the running you did. And when you finally did, Izuku took it, so you had your fight for it back once more. The top 42 made it through to the next round. It's unfortunate, but don't worry, even if you didn't make it. We've prepared other chances for you to shine. When Midheights made that announcement, she liked her lips, and you cringed. The real competition begins next. The press cavalry will be all over it. Give it your all. The R-rated hero raised her free hand to signal the giant screen behind her. Now then, here is the second game. I already know what it is, but what could it be? What could it be? I just said it and now here it is. The screen showed the name of the next game. Cavalry Battle. A cavalry battle. Kaminari asked the question with a confused and dejected expression. I'm bad at those. It's not an individual event, so I wonder how it'll work. Tsuyu said the statement quietly to herself with a curious tone. Let me explain. Midnight spoke up when she heard the confusion get passed around through the students. The participants can form teams of 2 to 4 people as they wish. It's basically the same as a regular cavalry battle, but the one thing that's different is, based on the results of the last game, Each person has been assigned a point value. A point-based system like the entrance exam, Rikido Sato, one of your classmates questioned out loud. Sato is tall with a broad build, his brown hair is spiked upwards. He has relatively tiny, square-shaped eyes with small black pupils and a pair of bushy eyebrows just above. Rikido bears huge, thick lips, slightly darker than the rest of his skin, and a notably large, round nose. That's easy to understand. In other words, each team is worth different points depending on who's on the team. Uraraka exclaimed with a bright smile. Her words basically broke it down for everyone. Midnight stomped her foot on the ground to get the attention of all the students. You guys don't hold back even though I'm talking. The woman showed the set of points on the screen. Yes, you're right. And the points assigned go up by 5 points starting from the bottom. So 42nd gets 5 points and 41st gets 10 points. And the point value assigned to first place is 10 million. It's a survival of the fittest, with a chance for those at the bottom to overthrow the top. Within an instant of those words falling out of her mouth, almost everyone turned their attention to Izuku. You rolled your eyes at everyone staring, finding it very annoying, and you didn't like how it was making him nervous. Now then, I'll explain the rules of the cavalry battle. Midnight's voice grabbed the attention of the crowd and 11 classes of students. The time limit is 15 minutes. Each team is worth the total of its members' points, and the riders will wear a headband with that number on their foreheads. Teams will try to grab each other's headbands until time runs out, and try to keep as many as they can. Stolen headbands must be worn from the neck up. So, the more you steal, the harder it'll be to manage them. And the most important thing is that even if your headband gets stolen, or if the team falls, you're not out. Yaoyorozu brought a hand to her chin and thought about what the R-rated hero explained. Which means, since there are 42 people, there will be either 10 or 12 teams on the field. It will make it harder for some, but give a chance for others to redeem themselves. During the game, it'll be a cruel fight where you can use your quirks. But it's still a cavalry battle. You'll get a red card for attacks that are trying to make people fall on purpose. You'll be removed immediately. Midnight announced, much to Bakuga's dismay. Now you have 15 minutes to build your teams. Start. Within an instant of the hero saying this, everyone crowded around the first 3 that made it past the finish line behind Izuku. You, Katsuki, and Todoroki. You ignored it and moved away from them. It made you uncomfortable. Everyone was avoiding Izuku, even Ida, who ended up teaming with Todoroki. You turned to your best friend, eyes staring at him, who seemed to be in deep thought. Want to team up? You said it as a rhetorical question, but apparently it wasn't. That made you pause and furrow your eyebrows. Did you hear that right? What? Your tone was confused, genuinely. Did actually say, no? What the hell does he mean no? I don't want you to help me, I want to do this on my own. Izuku said with a shining look of determination in his eyes. Normally you adored that look, but right now it made you give an unamused look. This is group work, Izuku. There is no doing it on your own. You had a straight face as you stared at the boy you were questioning whether or not he was thinking properly. You know what I mean. Actually, you did not. Sometimes I want to work by myself. When I work with you, you end up doing all the work. And I can't improve if you do that. He couldn't help but think back to your childhood and how it was based on. Year after year, day after day, you devoted yourself to protecting him from the negative parts of the world, of all kinds. You were always so protective of him. You never put yourself first because of him. This year Izuku wanted to be strong enough to protect himself. Strong enough to protect you. He wanted you to see how strong he was so you could finally focus on yourself and your happiness. All he's ever wanted is for you to be happy. He was not lying when he said you were his priority, his goal. So, I'm holding you back. You stared him in the eyes. That's what you're saying. It was a rhetorical question, because that's exactly what he said without using those specific words. I don't mean it like that. Yes, it is. You just don't want to sound mean about it, but that's essentially what you're saying. You inhaled and strayed your gaze away from. I'm holding you back. His silence was enough of a response. I love working with you, I really do. But sometimes I want to work on my own so I can learn better. I want to get stronger, and you're a welcome distraction. It's hard to focus when I'm with you. I said okay, Izuku. You respected his choice and was not going to attempt to change it. You understood what he was saying and, in a way, you agreed with him. You want to do this yourself, I get it. It's okay. He tilted his head to the side to look at your expression, staring how you concealed your thoughts from your face. Are you mad at me? He wondered. You were looking away from him and your face was unreadable. He could tell you were hiding your feelings from him. That was the truth. You were not mad or upset with him. You were hurt, but not at him. You were hurt knowing you were holding him back. You were coddling him too.